We're good.
Okay, the hamsters are running in their wheels. We're good to go. Okay, I make a motion to open the meeting.
A second.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Limbeck,
Aye.
trustee Coe,
Aye.
trustee Wilkes,
Aye.
trustee Marshall, Mayor Plummer.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, is there any board member who has a conflict of interest or anything to disclose regarding the agenda items this evening?
I do not.
I do not.
I do not. I do not.
I do not. Okay, with that being said, would the clerk please give us sort of the overview of the open meeting compliance certification?
Sure.
Sounds special.
If you're in the room, if you wish to speak to the board, please give your name and address, unless you're in a class protected by law. If you're on Zoom, we ask that you put your questions in Q&A if you wish for me to ask the question to the board. If you wish to speak directly to the board, please raise your hand. I also ask that we all be respectful and let's move right along.
Okay, with that being said, let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So we open the meeting with public comment. If there's anyone from the public wishing to speak. We have a couple of minutes, or if there's anyone online as well, or if there was an email or,
Email was shared with the board.
okay.
Dorothea, how many people are online?
6. No, I'm sorry, 8.
Okay. No one? Oh, yeah. Name and address, please.
23 Elm Parkway. Are we, I noticed on the first point on the agenda is the short-term rental.
Mhm.
Is this a time to speak on that, or are we allowed to have time after we hear what is being said?
We usually take public comment during an agenda item.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, no, thank you. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, Jeff. Perfect timing, Jeff.
Well, thank you.
Don't get too comfortable because I'm gonna make a motion. I make a motion that we adjourn temporarily for an attorney-client session. It won't be long, just like that. Is there a second? Second.
Trustee Marshall,
Aye.
trustee Wilkes,
Aye.
trustee Coe,
Aye.
trustee Limbeck,
Aye.
Mayor Plummer.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, please pause. Talk. Make a motion, we reopen the meeting.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Wilkes,
Aye.
trustee Coe,
Aye.
trustee Marshall,
Aye.
trustee Limbeck,
Aye.
Mayor Plummer.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, we're ready. First item on the agenda is the short-term rental law. We had a workshop yesterday jointly with the planning and zoning board. Because they had submitted, a memorandum to us about, some things that they thought we should be looking at in addition to their findings regarding the LWRP, the local waterfront revitalization plan. Dave, I know you wanted us on the agenda just to continue that discussion and what came out of that, and is there any direction we would want to get to our team perhaps?
Yeah.
So,
Do we want to open up for public comment in advance, or do we want to do that after?
well, why don't we talk amongst ourselves and then, you can hear kind of what thoughts are too, and, yeah, okay.
So to the mayor's point, I thought last night was great. It was good to have the planning board here and be able to go around, the room, fairly big group of people talking about what we thought from the law, how it was crafted, what things we could do to make it more consistent with the local waterfront revitalization plan. I'm aware as well, we have 2 new trustees who haven't been part of the process. So hopefully they've been able to kind of come up to speed, a little bit with that law. But from last night, there were some key items that I thought, and then maybe we could all just kind of reiterate and see what direction we might want to give Jeff to amend the law that we had brought forward to the public, had the public comment on. And to what degree that changes it enough that we would need another public hearing.
Mhm.
Right. So the few things that I just want to talk on, the waterfront amenity discussion. And this was the idea of having some sort of in the approval process for special permits of short-term rentals, regardless of where they may be, or be allowed, but have some sort of language in there that references the LWRP, the Local Waterfront Revitalization Plan, with the intent to encourage the Board of Approval for that special permit to ask the question, how are you interacting with and creating amenities for the waterfront? Not as a requirement, but rather as a conversation, a part of the process that they could choose to or choose not to have it be an applicable standard for that particular property. And for me, I was generally comfortable with the language that was in the law as it was. This was Mindy, the attorney for the planning board, had referenced that she felt it was embedded in there in one of the sections of the law. Some other members had referenced maybe what if we just add some language that references being considerate to the LWRP. I'm also very comfortable with that, thereby giving the approving board, by the law right now, it's our board, but it could be a different board in the future, the ability to reference the LWRP as a standard by which they could suggest, recommend, or strongly encourage or require, then I suppose waterfront amenities or access.
Okay. Just so we're clear, a brief overview of what the LWRP is. It's essentially an overlay district that we have adopted. A number of municipalities along the canal system have adopted this policy. And it really is about creating that connection with property owners and business owners to the waterfront and engaging residents and visitors alike with the waterfront, whether it's through pathways, amenities, things like that. So just so everybody kind of has a really basic understanding of what we're looking at, but it really is about the canal, that area along the canal. Yeah. So, yeah, any other thoughts from people?
So I guess correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm trying to understand, because there were some comments discussed last night about the LWRP and the thoughts about opening up that area to short-term rentals because to provide more public amenities. Remember that section? And we were talking about the Monroe Avenue, the State Street, anything that backs up. And I guess I'd like more discussion about what we think about that. And that's really increasing and putting STRs in more of the residential areas, which we had talked about not doing. So I'd like to talk about that and see what everybody feels, because that's a significant
Yeah.
piece of land.
I think that's a good point. I do want to go there too. I think whether or not it is on Monroe Ave or additional properties and additional residential zones, I think we asked the first question, do we want to have the law reference the LWRP to apply to the limited office residential, to apply to the Shane Place, mixed use Erie Canal, other mixed use districts? So we first asked the question, do we want to have a reference to the canal and the LWRP? And then the second question is do we want to extend it to additional properties?
So I guess as relates to the actual inclusion of the LWRP language specifically, I don't see what the negative ramifications would be of providing that as a suggestion.
I completely agree.
From the standpoint of not saying, hey, your property, that backs up directly to the canal. Thus, you need to do X, Y, Z that may or may not fit with LWRP language. But to include it so that it brings the attention to someone, I don't see a problem with that.
I don't either. And so,
Yeah, and you don't want to mess with somebody's private property. It's like, oh, you want to do that? Well, then you have to put in the dock, you have to do the path, I think,
Insurance.
yeah, it raises other issues frankly for a property. Okay, even in terms of perhaps liability or any other thing, or the very idea that what they would like to provide, in fact, for Airbnb may not be you know, the dock, the boat, but, you know, so I think I agree with you. I don't think we need to create a slippery slope at all. Maybe a reference to it, you know, as in, it would be nice.
And I'm very comfortable with that.
Yeah.
language, and I think that that's a preferred route.
So the question I have is how realistic, given the limits of paragraph 3. That, you know, it's back up from 11. Actually, on that third page is where you've got the limits and the statute and the proposed code. I mean, in the MUEC, the first floors are not permitted, it's only the second floor, and how realistic is that? But the second floor units, you're gonna get some connection. You know, require. Well, I suppose it's possible, you know, from the landlord to get some
Sort of connection to the canal.
with a. I don't know, we have any condos like it now, so it's gonna be the same line.
It's like Florida, if you're in a beach condo, you know, still have.
So the landlord, if they wanted to apply for the permit in the second floor, would have to. The board could at least consider if there's some way to engage the canal and.
What if we were to, in section 11, under special permit conditions? Right? It says conditions, so I want to be careful how the language is when we put it in, but we have A and then we have I, or 1 through 7. Then we have B. Right? What if below B we introduce C or somehow slide it into B and simply insert the line? The Board of Trustees shall consider the LWRP as part of the approval process, or some language to that end. Or appropriate, as appropriate, or to the degree feasible, or.
That would be right, but I put it in B if you're gonna have something.
Yeah, I mean, that seems like the easiest.
Or we leave it out. But I think that's where you put it,
What do we gain by that?
by leaving it out or putting
No,
it in.
by putting it in. What do we, you know, we're crafting legislation and I always think, you know, are we solving a problem? Are we supporting our community? You know, what are we gaining by doing it? I'm just asking this in the largest, most rhetorical sense. You know, 'cause that's always how I look at legislation. You know, is there a driving need or, you know, what does this entail?
To the extent the landlord is unaware of the LWRP process to begin with. And the fact that there could be beneficial capital projects done to their property or whatever it may be. To enhance the canal area, that's the only thing I can think of that would be a possible.
Yeah, putting the potential permit applicant on notice, but you're also in this legislation reiterating that we do have an LWRP that when.
Okay, so there's the element of awareness of the LWRP.
Let me shut that.
Is it by the
Sure.
way?
I would say awareness, encouragement, and then respecting the comprehensive plan, right? The wording of the comprehensive plan is to put the amenities piece.
It allows you to point to that document that if the situation is perfect.
Hmm.
For some kind of amenity, it allows you to point to the code and say, hey. You know, it might be coming, but this is a entirely board calls,
Yeah,
not legal,
I guess what would it
it's
hurt?
policy.
Where would it hurt it? That's what, maybe we should look at
Only
that.
giving the sense of additional layers of requirements or perspectives that may have an applicant look at it and say, wow, I don't want to deal with that.
But it isn't required.
Exactly.
right, it's just a-
not.
it's
So-
something, it comes down to the language that, you know, like shall consider.
Yeah,
shall,
Right,
That's
right.
You know,
Yeah,
I think the more generic it is, the better off we would, I just, someone's right.
as long as it's not.
Also considering the LWRP where
Appropriate.
appropriate,
Practical.
practical, or something.
Right, it's just it's respectful, not restrictive.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I just.
Yep.
The more,
That's right. I
Yeah,
don't want
no
to be.
restriction.
I-
Why don't I play with it and then we'll.
okay,
Yeah.
thank you, Jeff.
So that's direction number 1. And Mayor, to your point too, I think we talked a little bit last night about how a lot of the amenities that would come upon the canal, we hope would be broader than just specific to a short-term rental application, meaning docks, access for canoes, things that we can do that are broader rather than just specific to a singular property, I think are more
But
likely to achieve that goal.
That's a whole other
That's
aspect of
correct.
development that really wouldn't be about private property
Exactly.
owners, yeah. So
Exactly,
that's-
which is the
that's
reason-
something different.
Yeah, so it reinforces the less township development. Okay, so I guess now would be a reasonable time to pause. Has anybody ever known whether or not we can talk over this in the recordings?
You are.
Does it, I know I am, but does it come through when you listen to it on YouTube, okay?
You know, I never relived our meetings.
No?
Once is enough, yeah,
Once is enough, but I can see that it's typing what we're saying, so. My guess is it can hear us.
Alright.
I'm not sure how well. Obviously, it's pretty good.
Well, if we keep asking the question, let's get past it. So Lisa had mentioned the next part of this, which is the where, right? The code as it's crafted now uses zones, right, as the determinants as to where short-term rentals could be, right, where they could stay, where they could go, where they're permitted and not. The question last night is, are there properties that, in the interest of development, which we had some conversation on that word as well, but are there areas where allowing a short-term rental, in another zone, in a residential zone, really, that we want to expand it, right? And have something like a short-term rental overlay district that then expands beyond a singular zone and encroaches on, not encroach, probably the wrong word, but enters into a residential area.
Mhm.
So one property that immediately comes to mind is a property on State Street just past, is it the dentist? Right, so you have
The current Airbnb, that's. it.
yeah, there's an Airbnb right there near Olives.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, yeah, the first house, yes.
Yeah, so that's one that has a proximal location to a mixed-use residential or mixed-use zone, mixed-use Erie Canal, that is already been converted to a short-term rental. I suspect there are others as you go, like as you come across Monroe, for example, there's all the houses that have the backyards that abut, Erie Canal, and that could even go potentially over into. But that's the only residential zone that the law currently would exclude, because as you then get to Talbot's and it's permitted in that zone, I believe. Going the other way, I suppose there's a number of homes that are on the canal, right? That a short-term rental would encourage visitors to share the experience, but it would then take it off of the residential long-term rental or long-term residential role, right? So you're essentially trading a visitor experience for a resident experience, right?
Wait,
But just because it's zoned potentially for it, doesn't mean every single thing will be short-term rental, just as we have a tavern overlay, for example, not every property is a tavern, what it is an option potentially. I just want to kind of throw that out there about it, because again, it's about how do we get that balance and how do we give options to property owners.
I don't think we should dilute the residential districts just because of their proximity to the canal. This village is compact enough that you can get to the canal from an awful lot of places. There's a lot of amenities on the canal already. And I think once you encroach into residential, you're opening the door for the next exception.
So I completely agree with you. It's the question at hand, right? The reason I agree with you is the residential communities, particularly State Street. I know this doesn't apply because it's outside the canal district, but it's still germane, I think, to the conversation, beyond the underpass, going north. There are sort of pocket enclaves of residential communities that, just based on geography, are uniquely distinct and somewhat separate from the broader residential districts that all are contiguous, right? And whether or not they're divided by, the canal or they're divided by, just geography themselves. And I think even, and this isn't exactly the same thing, but like the, Heatherhurst area is a unique sort of residential communities, right? Still connected, still part of the village. But they're uniquely different. And my concern would be, to the extent that you permit short-term rentals to bleed into that, you start to encroach on a residential community that can already be relatively fragile, right? And you really want to, particularly in the fragile residential zones that could quickly transition, right? I think you want to protect that residential experience. Personally, I don't want to have short-term rentals in what we consider residential zones. I don't want to expand mixed-use districts either. I think there's an appropriate buffer, and if you should push into them, even with a short-term rental, you're changing that fabric.
Well, I think the laws as currently written reflects that,
Yes.
you know, so I think, you know, that sort of is been covered, so it's like, you know. Right now, we have, what is it, 15 currently existing Airbnbs, I think 14 or 15. So in my mind, it's not, gee, do we expand into residential areas? The law's already addressing that. I think it's, what do we do now with those that exist currently where we have not had problems identified with just what exists now? That to me is actually the focus of our discussion. We've already crossed the bridge legislatively about, we don't want to expand in residential areas. Maybe we really should look at more mixed use areas if there is to be expansion. But I think the crux of this is, what do we do now with the ones that are currently existing in our village? Where we had an ad hoc committee, the majority say that they weren't identified as a problem. They could understand us taking a look at, maybe we don't want to add in anymore. And do we grandfather these properties in? You know, how do we look at that going forward? That's where I think we are right now. You know, not the fact about it. I don't want to expand it into residential areas.
No.
I don't. I think we need to look at other areas that are more commercial, mixed use, you know, I get that. But right now, we have 15 of these short-term rentals in our community that we've never had a complaint, we've never, you know, and so I'm concerned about where the legislation could go when I want us to find that balance. How do we get that balance? This is where we are right this moment. How do we move forward? What does that look like? What would we want to direct Jeff to do?
I think the onus is on us to prove that the existing short-term rentals are actually causing harm to the village.
That's why you write legislation to solve the problem.
So that's, I think, what we have to do with the status quo properties. And to the extent you can point to the, you know, the research that was put together in what, February 2023
Last year.
or 4 or something like that.
Yeah.
So now you're rewriting the legislation, because as it is, it says no residential short-term.
Well,
Well, this is
No.
draft legislation. I mean, that's why we're talking about it. And, you know, it's not final.
If
So
I may.
It's a discussion.
correct. And if I may, I think the reason to have talked about the added properties was because it was a discussion point last night. And I think what we're doing now is we're sort of thinking about, where are we really going? What is the crux of this discussion? So if I may, maybe accelerate through last night, and then we can,
Accelerating would be good.
okay, perfect. Well, we just got the majority to say that we don't want to expand into residential zones, so scrap that, we're not doing that, right? There was discussion last night. It's terminal. The next part was parking. We're gonna strike it. So current short-term rentals, wherever the parking requirement.
Restrictions, yeah.
Where is it?
That way,
In the-
It was like one spot for each bedroom or something.
yeah, it was under.
So what we're, what we're essentially saying is where a short-term rental is permitted. There may be public parking available and there may not be, and that's on them to figure it out. Right? Yeah, where was that?
Don't worry about it.
Okay,
I'll find it.
Yeah.
so we're striking
I have
the
a mark
parking
in my house.
requirement. Right, we talked briefly on ADUs, I don't think we're doing anything different there, I believe we saw that last night. We are not going the route of, multiple additional definitions of in, not in, all that stuff,
It's 9, but
perfect.
Thank you.
Okay, and then the next question is, we wanted to add the zoning code reference and embed it in the, zoning code.
I'm sorry, I was reading another definition, and make sure we were all right about posted any. I'm sorry, what did you say?
I was saying, so beyond the striking of the parking, the other one thing we wanted to direct up with, was to add it to the zoning code.
you say that you say it.
Yeah, the use tables,
Yeah.
right, as discussed last night. Right, so I think the question that then I have is, with these things alone, have we become any more restrictive such that we have to bring it back to a public hearing?
Certainly not adding to the use tables.
And certainly not getting rid of parking,
That's just ministerial.
so it's
Right.
been less restrictive.
Eliminating parking is less restrictive.
Mhm.
Yeah. Waterfront is. You know, it's.
Hi, it's been nice.
We'll go.
They wait till the third year of law school to teach it.
Yeah.
Very sophisticated.
Yeah.
So long as,
Technical term.
yeah, so long as the language is crafted in a way that knows the requirements as a result of the LWRP, it is basically just a neutral statement.
It's notification.
Okay,
So just so everybody understands, we have a draft of the legislation, and if we're tweaking it or making changes to it. Without going back to a public hearing, any change under municipal law means it should be a less restrictive change. If we say, no, we're gonna, I don't know, we're gonna make it a requirement for the LWRP, anytime we add that in, then we have to go back and notice a public hearing, just so everybody understands the process.
I have one peculiarity to mention that I saw last night that. I'm sorry. Paragraph 6 on page 4. Second sentence is worded kind of strangely. Says all it says is special use permit shall require renewal by the board of trustees related to each cannabis or subject. What this really meant was, in order to continue in for the next year, the special use permit must require or shall require renewal. So this almost looks like you are required to renew it for the next year. Without that.
We need to clarify the language.
Yeah, I would add a clarifier. Just something's weird.
Wordsmithing.
Yeah. I think so.
well, all right, sentence 1, any special permit issued shall be in effect for 1 year from the date of the approval.
Right, and then it says the permit shall.
But then it says the permit essentially has to require renewal,
Right. So,
which if you strike that entire sentence, then the first sentence covers it anyway, because it's only a 1-year approval, right?
yeah, I like the second sentence because it tells you when it must be done, and if it isn't done, it's gonna lapse. There's no automatic continuation.
You want to work on the wording?
Yeah, it's just, it'll just be something like that. In order for, the special use permit to continue the next year, or whatever, right? I don't like the way it is.
Okay, so we're directing you to work your
That's
magic.
okay, it's still not restricted, but.
I have another question, and this has to do, all right, never mind. I think that's good to put it in place, and so now we go back to the law and the conversation of, this is how it's crafted, anything in here can become less restrictive, it doesn't have to go back to public hearing. So rather than moving on to what you guys were talking about, which is the duration of the existing short-term rentals in the residential community. What I wanted to talk about, perhaps, was that number 6, while we're on topic. So we're giving a special permit for 1 year. I remember talking about this when we were writing the legislation, but a short-term rental applicant coming before the village to say, hey, I want to do this spectacular project. you know, on this house and improve it in this way with this much money. And you're telling me you're only gonna improve it for a year? That's kind of a tough ask.
You know, it sort of dovetails with, remember when Mike Newcomb said about, you know, the rental
Right, the
inspections,
permitting,
you know, the
yeah.
permitting, you know, all of that.
Right, and I agree. So 1
Yeah,
year,
so
way
we
too
ended up
short.
changing that to an inspection every 3 years.
Mhm.
So
You
does
know,
this,
just as a practical matter, well, that you
Which I
want
think is
any rental.
a good point.
so I just wanna make sure that when we bring this back to vote on it and discuss it, right? I wasn't thinking we were gonna discuss this, the merits of the grandfathering versus 1 year. Or have discussion points about what harm it brings to the community, or, you know, how might we be more lenient here? I thought tonight was just, let's rehash what happened in the planning board, make sure we direct Jeff in the correct way. And then if there's nothing material that would change, as long as the things that we want to talk about are more lenient, we can bring it to vote 2 weeks from now and discuss how.
I
much money-
understand, but nonetheless, if we're having a discussion, I think it should be an all-inclusive discussion. We've been working on this legislation for many, many months.
Mhm.
And I think when would the time be to discuss potentially grandfathering what's there?
Mhm.
When would the time be to discuss only 1 year sunsetting, if that's the way you want to go? I think we should have multiple years, you know, when is the time? I think this is the time, you know. We've had input from the planning and zoning board, we've had a couple hearings, it's back to our board.
Yeah.
We're directing our attorney to do some quote tweaking. This is the time, I believe we should discuss all of it and just say, is this the best legislation to put forward for our community, that's in the best interest of our entire community? That's where I'm.
All I would say to that is the agenda doesn't reference that as the topic. The agenda referenced the PZBA follow-up discussion.
Right.
If we want to go the route and have a discussion about things.
Then let's put it back on the agenda.
Yes,
let's
that's
put it
not
back
the
on
community.
the
Do it again,
Right, the community can-
100%,
And if you
100%.
if we are comfortable with that discussion taking place on the same night of the vote, or we want to separate them and have a discussion next meeting and then a vote the next meeting.
That's at the discretion of the board at the time.
I don't think it matters.
That's at the board's discretion,
That's right.
yeah.
So,
So I don't think we need to even have an answer on
yeah,
that.
but I think, so to your point, and
Have a
this is.
larger discussion again.
Yep, so to
Yeah.
your point on, though, this legislation, the things that I think we should talk about and we have to make a decision. How long is the permit granted, right? I think a 3
3
year,
years, just like rental, yeah.
3 year, maybe 5, but 3 years is a minimum, I
Yeah.
think. In Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong, but this gives the provision to rescind a special permit if there are violations. So it's not as though extending it out 3 years is creating a
And it's a
challenge.
matter, of course, with any special permit.
Right,
You
yeah.
know, I mean,
Right.
that's, you know, if you're in violation of a permit.
Yeah.
You know, you're dinged.
So I think, I think that could be 3, could even be 5. I mean, if we're gonna grant a special permit, then grant it and give them the ability to invest and give them the confidence that that permit's gonna be there for those 5 years, right? I think that's a reasonable consideration.
So you're moving 1 year, wanting to move 1 year to 5.
I mean, I think anything beyond 3 to 5 is helpful. Does anybody object to 5?
So how much for long-term rentals is currently?
I think we should keep it at 3, just for consistency.
Yeah.
I don't know why we're.
Is long-term rental 3? Okay,
Yeah.
keep it
I,
at 3.
I,
Let's say,
I'm
yeah,
just
let's
thinking it's
say
a rental, so,
yeah,
you know, in other words,
yeah,
a
that's-
rental is a
Yeah,
rental,
keep it same, keep it
you
consistent.
know,
Okay, yeah.
I'm just thinking.
Yeah, that's
Three,
It's too
keep it
problematic.
consistent.
Okay,
So then we're gonna bring it back then to discuss the other specifics about the grandfathering in and the.
or sunsetting, or, you know, just,
Whatever,
let's
right.
really take a look at that,
Yeah.
and what does that mean?
Yeah.
To have a balanced piece of legislation for the community.
So outside of that one piece, moving to 3, and Jeff, can we direct you tonight to amend it to include 3 instead of 1?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Everybody agree?
Yeah.
Everybody all agree? So I think outside of that, the only other item that we had real concerns about were the duration of stay. And right now it's written with 1. It could go all the way to grandfather, right? Basically permanent, and anything in between. And so I think that's a conversation that can probably occur on the night of the vote. Give us all an opportunity to review considerations, like what you had said, how does it harm or hurt the community? gives us all the opportunity to be prepared for public comment and then make a vote on that.
So David, you keep saying the night of the vote. Have we decided when we're gonna have a night of the vote? Because you keep mentioning that and I haven't heard that we've
Well, I
made a
think we-
decision.
Voting is at the discretion of the board.
I
So
think
we have not made a
you
decision
know,
as to when we're gonna vote on this.
Let's put it on the agenda for 2 weeks from now and put it as the short-term rental law.
The bigger takeaway is 2 weeks from now, put it back on.
That's right. There you
Yeah,
go.
That's-
That's the only action item we need.
That's what the clerk is waiting for.
Yes,
Thank you.
that's the direction to our clerk.
So then,
Okay.
what are we putting on the agenda for,
Short-term rental,
which is what, the discussion about the grandfather and everything?
discussion and potential adoption.
Okay, hold on, because I'm away. So I'm asking that this is such an important
Mhm.
piece of legislation. I would like to be a part of the discussion. I'd like to be a part of the vote.
Mhm.
And I will not be here. I'm going for it.
Mhm.
So can we move it to the meeting after?
You got a nice stuff. I'm
I,
fine with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
When's
the next one after that?
Oh,
May
too many
7th.
questions. I don't know when they mark
Yeah, I
them
know.
off the top of my head. I'd have to look that up tomorrow.
I'm looking right now.
Oh, you know,
Give me a second. Okay.
the next board meeting, that following board meeting would be May sixth.
May sixth,
But I don't know when, off the top of my head, when the law's gonna expire.
September.
From Marshall.
Well, we did it,
We extended.
Yeah.
we extended it
September.
in. When did we extend it?
Thought we went longer than just this.
Yeah. I thought
Yeah, we
went
did.
to
We did
September.
6
Yeah,
months, I thought.
Yeah,
I think
so we're all the way.
I think-
till-
Let's follow up and make sure.
Yeah,
I'll double check.
Yep.
but for all purposes of this evening, May 6th, unless you tell us we gotta do it sooner.
That's the agenda.
And are we saying that there's just a discussion, or are we saying discussion and vote, or do we have to
We
make that?
don't need to say whether or not we're voting.
Okay.
Because part of governing is when you listen to everybody,
Yes,
you
I
make a
agree.
decision, you know, we need to table this and go back. You don't necessarily have to vote. You make a decision, and they're based on the feedback from our residents. Okay, next. Village Hall employee and building safety. Oh, I'm sorry, you wanted to comment? I apologize here. Yes, of course. No, please, thank you.
Eric Peters, I just want to thank you for considering the fact that we've had short-term rentals in this community in the residential areas for many years, and we have not had any issues. And I think that there's been a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of energy spent on this issue. I understand the importance of making sure that there aren't any problems. But I feel that very strongly, and I have a lot of my colleagues who feel very strongly that because we haven't had any issues, that we would very much appreciate the consideration of grandfathering the ones that are existing in. We're certainly able to follow the regulations. We've, paid our fees to have them registered, and Steve can come in anytime and inspect. I heard something thrown out about perhaps collecting a tax like Monroe County collects from us.
Oh, a bad tax.
Mhm. For the village, which I think would be great, because that would also help the village economically. To be clear, the people that stay in our places are families, people that have grown up here, that want to show their kids around. They want to stay in the area where they live, or they want to be close to their friends and neighbors that they still know here. We have parents of college kids that want to, have their kids in a home away from home. The report that was written, and people took a lot of time and energy to write this, clearly stated that they did not feel with some reasonable things that this community would be hurt by short-term rentals, even in the residential areas. And I think that it would be really wonderful if people could revisit that particular report to understand that those people did a lot of research and a lot of time and a lot of energy to come up with these ideas, and the fact that we haven't had any issues should also play a very large part in it. We, of course, love this village. We do. That's why we're here. And We want it to be beautiful and safe and healthy and vibrant and all of the things that you want. So I think that considering the fact that we purchase properties, we have put a lot of money into them to make them beautiful and places where people do want to come and support our businesses here and be a part of this beautiful village. Anyway, I would just really appreciate that consideration.
Thank you.
Can I respond to Erin? Erin, thank you so much for being here and for presenting that. I agree. I think that we need to reevaluate and relook at that committee report. But I also want to make sure that we are referencing, David referenced that as well, this committee report. There are two committee reports, so we need to make sure that we're looking at both of them. There was a committee report done by the majority, and then there was another committee report done by another.
By one resident.
So,
One
yeah,
resident.
well, one member of the advisory committee, right. So please make sure that when we look at it, we look at all of that as a reference, but thank you.
Yeah, majority, I feel like, big majority,
Mhm.
yeah.
I'd like to make a clarification too. I'm gonna remain very parochial about this because there are issues with short-term rentals. And I've got one in the residential district, and that's where my parochial nature comes in, where the village has already allowed the residential flavor to be lessened because they allow them to pave over his front yard. And we have continuous problems with that individual. So I'm not in favor of grandfathering at all. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Appreciate that.
If I may.
I just want to say about the paving, that was decided upon by the planning and zoning board. I believe that,
It was still the village.
no, understood, but in other words, it was another board making a decision, you know. Regardless, I think, of whether or not it was a short-term rental or not, that, I mean, just even when you read the findings. So, no, I appreciate the comment, yeah.
Just a quick question, Dorothea, would you be able to, with regards to the existing short-term rentals, send a note to the board members of their location? It would be helpful in understanding.
Steve already put together a map.
Yeah,
If you could send it to me, that'd be
We can,
great.
we can
If you-
resend
if
it.
you
We'll
could
send it
resend
out.
it.
Oh, yeah, I've never saw that. That'd be
Yeah,
great.
no, we got it. Yeah, that was like early days.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So Steve's gonna
So
send us
that'll
a
be an
map,
action
a map of the existing.
yeah, Dorothea's gonna take care of it for us. Yeah.
Thank you.
sure. I will.
Yeah,
Thank
please
you.
add it to the list, Dorothea, right?
Good
Okay. Any other?
Well, actually, just to be clear,
Comments.
that was sent to the old board of trustees.
No, I said she's gonna resend
Well,
it.
that's what I mean, okay.
Oh,
so
yeah,
we'll-
for sure,
we'll get
please
that
resend it,
soon.
yeah,
Okay.
no.
No, you don't have the password.
No.
Sorry.
I don't remember, did one of the members of the short-term rental committee have a short-term rental as well?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Yeah, it
But
was a
that was
mix.
intentional.
It was intentional, and it was a mix of
Yeah.
residents from different, you know, demographics, age groups, you know, all of that.
But we asked for somebody to be represented.
Yeah, okay.
And it was, the committee was approved unanimously by the board of trustees.
We wanted that expertise.
Okay, great.
All right, moving along. Well, let's see, we have our 5 minutes. Should we go to the Arbor Day proclamation? Because there's gonna be a lot to cover in the market.
The other,
Thank
Sure.
you for
Thank
coming
you.
in. So this is like essentially a renewal of our
Yes.
our proclamation. This is all the municipalities that are part of the Arbor Day program.
this is essentially a fill in the blank
Yeah.
proclamation. It's standard. It's what they expect from us from the Arbor Day Foundation. It's not one we crafted, so we just follow their lead because this is what they want from all their municipalities to maintain our tree city and
Mhm.
everything else that we have.
And it's a great program.
So my question is, I understand that this is a kind of a protocol proclamation that's general. Isn't there any way we could intimize it, shall we say, to change it from where it says city? It's not us. You don't.
We changed those portions.
So this is just the template, but so we put in village and.
Oh, okay, so do you
Yeah.
have what ours is gonna be? Look like?
It'll be a cross off and we'll put in village, we select it and we send it in that way.
Okay,
That's
so
all.
the change is gonna be village here.
Yep.
right? And is there any other changes on this?
No,
Okay, and you don't think that we could make it a little bit more intimate by putting what we feel is important as far as being a tree city?
What's the purpose?
Well, because we're approving or embracing a proclamation. And it's just a simple wordsmithing of adding what we feel is really important, like urban forest canopy, street trees, heritage trees, just to make it look like it's something that we actually made our own. I mean, is that, I mean, I'm just asking, it was brought to my attention.
I think
by
there's
two
many other
residents.
ways that we can address that. This is essentially the, Tree City program.
Mhm.
The national program is, requesting us to sign their template of what the proclamation is. I think there's many ways that we certainly can, show our support for sustainable actions. And for
I mean, I'm just bringing it up to the board. It's not anything that I'm, set upon, but we're already changing the city to village.
Well, any, or towns, like the town of Pittsburgh changes it to town. I
So,
mean,
right,
that's,
so we're changing, right, so I'm just saying, does anybody else feel, I mean, I can stop, I'm just saying, does anybody feel the need?
I'm good with the way it
Yeah.
is and we just put in village. I think it shows we support the program.
Do you feel that we need to add anything that's more?
I would
to
suggest
us?
we can't.
You think we
Um,
can't?
Well, I only say that because the Tree City USA being on the map of Tree City, it's an arborday.org
Yeah,
thing.
that's fine.
And standard 4 in Tree City USA standards is, right here, bypassing and reciting an official Arbor Day proclamation, which is theirs and their template that's in the package. So
Okay.
I think we just let it be.
So we're just,
And if anybody else wants to make some other proclamation,
Yeah,
with more
that's fine.
specific wording, let's do
I
it.
think,
okay.
you know, we can
just want to bring it
certainly
up.
add in and enhance and have all sorts of
Yeah.
proclamations.
But this is specific to be on the map for the Arbor Day
Right.
Foundation. So I think we just give them what they want. Proclamation don't legally binding in any way to us, so.
It's
I
the
think-
renewal process.
I think we're good.
All
Yeah,
right, sounds fine with me.
okay, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Okay,
Yeah, approve the mayor signing of the Arbor Day Foundation proclamation.
Second.
almost
Yeah.
tried there.
Yeah.
Okay, trustee Wilkes,
Aye.
trustee Limbeck,
Aye.
trustee Cove,
Hi.
trustee Marshall,
Aye.
Mayor Plummer.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Just as a note, just because we have just a minute here, reserve funding, is still, you know, just crafting language, so, we're gonna bring it back, on the next agenda. Just wanted to let everybody know. Okay, on that one, yeah.
You keep on doing pretty good. I've got the first draft almost here, sorry.
Yeah. That was a lot,
You got it.
a
So,
lot of moving parts on that, for sure. Are we at 6? Oh, so close.
About 5 seconds.
Well, we can check and see if we have a representative here for 21 State.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Did
Oh,
you?
You're
It's not my property.
Yeah,
Come on up.
He doesn't speak English, so I'm an attorney, that's why I'm here, hopefully I can speak for him. And I'm in contact with the building inspector, Steve,
Yep,
so apply for the special permit.
Can we
you can have a seat
name for the
too.
record? Can I have a seat? You know, we don't fight. Not that often
So my
anyway.
name's Lee Ping Fong, last name is ZHANG, I think it's on the application.
Okay. This is what you get. Okay, great.
Nice to meet you guys.
Oh,
Let's wait for some business board.
Head of the board.
It's far away from the business house.
So do you want to just give us a little bit of a background on this?
Oh, yeah, the nice, I think this is what the landlord likes us, because we're going for a 10-year lease with 2 options, so it's likely to get 20 years, so we have 2 options to renew. And then we have agreed on the rent and the basic terms on the lease. And parking's not gonna be an issue, because we're gonna have 3 or 4 employees. So they only have like 2 probably foot massage chairs downstairs, 1 or 2 upstairs for overflow. So it's a small business, but I think people in the village come out to be pampered. And it sounds like a good business, and so we can have, we even have the fire inspection done, because in the upstairs, we want to put 2 chairs, 1 or 2 chairs upstairs, and that seems to be fine, so. I'm open for questions.
I have a question. You
Sure.
have the proposed hours of operation, which just says 8 to
Yeah.
12 hours. Do you know when you're thinking about
Oh,
opening and
yeah,
when?
it's 10 to 8,
10 to 8?
yeah.
Thank you.
And then,
Yeah.
so does her response to that, officially amend the application?
I mean, you're gonna approve it as
As-
requested.
Yeah, okay. And is that, Monday through Saturday, Monday through Sunday? 7 days?
Basically,
If it's, you know, you have objections to, we can adjust.
It's 7 days, 10 to 8. You don't have to be open, just so you know. If we approve it at that, you don't have to be open.
right,
Oh,
but you
You're gonna
can,
get less.
Yeah,
Oh,
Yeah.
you can make it
yeah,
less.
you can do it within those times. You can-
Oh, yeah.
And Dave likes to make sure people know that, which is a very nice thing. No, that's a good thing though, you know.
That's the less restrictive part that you
Yeah.
want.
Right.
And then if garbage an issue, they'll take garbage home. They did just have wet towels, they would do laundry at home, that won't be a problem either. So they just want to make sure that not a bothers any businesses around them. You'll find them very polite and I just hope they speak better English, so I don't have to hear you speak for them.
What was there?
That's what I was saying.
I know.
What used to be.
I don't even know what was in there.
I used to be an office.
Was it?
Yeah, there, that's why we supply this little kitchen downstairs. Yeah, just a living room.
Okay.
A common room.
Gotcha.
Is this the blue?
Yeah, it's right across from the library.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or is it?
No.
No, it's the next one.
Yeah.
It's to the left of the.
Yeah.
red lot. No, two down from the red lot.
Okay.
Alright.
Maybe in some of the business.
And will you, be on both first and the second floor?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have a whole building.
Great.
Yeah.
And so this,
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
and so this would be a 10-year lease, is this, are they effectively moving the business from somewhere else, or is this them starting the business from fresh?
Start from a fresh, yeah, but they have years of experience.
Yeah.
Um,
Any other questions from the, is there a motion?
You gotta open the
I make,
public.
we have a open public hearing. Do you have a second?
Second.
Roll call.
Okay, trustee Limbeck.
Aye.
Trustee Wilkes.
Aye.
Trustee Co.
Aye.
Trustee Marshall.
Aye.
Mayor Plummer.
Aye. The public hearing is now open. Is there anyone wishing to speak on this particular item?
too cold today.
Crickets out there. Okay, anybody online who has anything to say?
Double checking. Nothing at this time. We've risen to 12 people,
Okay.
so we have
Great.
a
Make a
presence.
motion to close the public hearing.
Thank you.
Second.
Okay. Roll call.
1 second. Okay, trustee Co.
Aye.
Trustee Marshall. Trustee Limbeck.
Aye.
Trustee Wilkes.
Aye.
Mayor Plummer. Motion passes.
Okay, it's back to the board. Are there any additional questions or comments from the board?
Welcome, we're excited.
Oh, how
We
nice.
have to make a motion.
Whenever you're
I'll
ready.
make a motion to, accept or to grant a special permit as listed here in
I submitted with the hour change.
the hours.
With the hours.
The hours. I second.
As amended, yeah. Can we have a second?
Please.
Yeah, we got a second.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, ready? Trustee Wilkes.
Aye.
Trustee Co.
Aye.
Trustee Marshall. Trustee Limbeck.
Aye.
Mayor Plummer. Motion passes.
Thank you for coming.
I know the things you guys are.
Uh-huh. There we go. All right. Good stuff.
I need 2 minutes, 5
Yeah,
minutes.
should we just do a quick recess for like?
Yeah.
5 minutes?
5 minutes just to set up.
Okay, motion for a 5-minute recess.
Second.
Trustee Marshall.
Aye.
Trustee Wilkes. Trustee Co.
Aye.
Trustee Limbeck.
Aye.
Mayor Plummer.
Aye.
Passes.
Okay, we're just gonna pause so we can set up for the slides. Okay,
We're live.
ready, captions, everything?
Yeah.
Okay, motion to reopen the meeting. Is there a second?
Okay, trustee Lindbeck,
Aye.
trustee Cove,
Aye.
trustee Marshall,
Aye.
trustee Wilks,
I,
Mayor Plummer.
Aye.
Motion
Someone still has
passes.
some caffeine. Okay.
Okay,
All
here we
right.
go.
Okay, we're going to just give you an overview of the budget, and I want to thank the previous board also for working on this. That includes trustee Lightgab, thank you for your service, and also Lily Lanfair, and also a formal welcome to trustee Wilks and trustee Lindbeck. I know you've also had an opportunity to meet with the treasurer and review the budget and read it in great depth and detail. So here's our new board. Budgets, what are they about? We're always in the details of the budget. And again, what are we doing differently that we haven't maybe been doing in the past? And frankly, we're just expanding on some things. For example, 3 years ago, when Dorothea became treasurer, we really took a look at our budget categories, and a lot of things were kind of lumped in together, and there was not a lot of clarity or transparency. And so we continue to review those categories and expand them, which we think really brings greater clarity for anybody reading the budget. So we're also, we continue to update and expand our multi-year capital plan. We'll be getting to that a little bit more later on here. And also, we are funding our new reserves, and we're pretty close to repurposing some of our older reserves going back to 1974. To the tune of repurposing roughly about $450,000 of taxpayer funds. So I'm really pleased that this work is moving forward. I do want to briefly mention the refuse district. We won't be covering it in great detail this evening. We just received news earlier today that although we had awarded SAREC the contract, a 2-year contract to serve our village, they have been bought out by Casella. So right now, we're just getting some additional information. It's our understanding that the contract will still be in place for the 2 years at the same rate, but nonetheless, it's just fast breaking news. So we're gonna be covering it this evening, but we will be circling back on the refuse district. Okay, moving along, please. So these are all of the things that we're looking at right now in the 25-26 budget. We have a lot going on here, as you can see, and there's a few highlights that I just want to call your attention to. DPW, again, we had an issue with security down there, so we're looking at putting in some fencing. To be safer, I think, for people who are coming and going off the canal path to the Arboretum. Our road work, we are getting back on schedule with a lot of our major projects. As you know, we're going to be doing South and Wood. It should be completed this summer, and we're very excited about that. 2 major vehicle replacements. These are really old vehicles that have aged out. I think our flush truck is how old? Zach?
It's a 2000.
Wow, 25 year vintage. It's a vintage truck. Okay, so it's now classic evidently. Get a higher price at auction. But we're excited to really be properly upgrading our equipment and getting back on schedule. You'll see utility mapping is on here. Zach, maybe if you can talk about what is utility mapping and why is that important for our village, especially we're such an old village.
It's mapping for the buried utilities that the village owns, which would include the sanitary sewer, the storm sewers, and electric that provides electricity for the street lighting.
And the mapping is all underground.
Yes, this is to identify a little more closely than the current mapping that we have. It is mostly based off of old GPS data. So when other utility owners come through and do work, or anybody's excavating, we can identify where those utilities are to help prevent any damage to those utilities when the excavations occur.
So really what we're doing is we're sort of creating new records of where everything is located underground, underneath all of our sidewalks and streets. And also updating whatever has been changed. So it's important, especially when projects come into the village. And then many of you know, you've seen that we're in progress or process, I should say, redoing the porch columns on the front porch of Village Hall. And also we're doing rehabilitation and restoration work of the beautiful wrought iron. And we hope to have all of that completed, certainly over the summer. So actually going out to bid.
Yes,
Yeah.
we should have that for the board's review, next meeting for those
Okay.
bid docs.
Yeah, great. We'll be moving that along. That's wonderful. Yep. Next slide, please. So again, just replacing all of our necessary equipment. We're glad to be getting back on that schedule. Definitely. So let's take a look at really for our residents, where do your tax dollars go? So we thought it'd be good to show you out of every dollar that we pay in taxes, about 58% out of 58 cents, excuse me, out of the dollar goes to the Pittsford Central School District. After that, about 30 cents of our tax dollar goes to the town and to the county. And so what's left for the village is 12 cents out of every dollar that we pay in taxes. So I think that's a good representation of really how much is we're spending per dollar. So we're taking a look now at our projected revenues, and you'll see the two big pieces of this pie chart. Clearly property taxes and then sales tax. And then we have other, as we say, other smaller amounts coming in over the transom to contribute to what our revenues are. Do you want to add anything more to this?
No.
Dorothy and I are kind of a tag team on this, so,
A lot of these lines flux and grow or
yeah,
go down. This year you're seeing sale of property being a little bit higher at 77,000. That's because we are doing the replacement of vehicles and the sale of them is going to bring in some revenue. Next year you might see that me 20,000. So
Yeah.
some of these they do flux. You
Yeah.
do not have a steady
Yeah.
amount.
so let's take a look at the next slide then. And now you're really taking a look at all of the projected expenditures, and you can see there's many more pieces divided up in this pie. And frankly, I think, you know, this is really what any municipality would look like in terms of what sort of their pie. Whether it's our small village of 1,300 people or a really large municipality like Albany. These are all things that, you know, everybody does, and so we need to portion it out in the pie. I know you wanted to speak to something on this one, or was it the other chart?
It's
It's the next one, okay.
Mayor?
Yeah.
Will this be online for the?
Yes.
Yes, everything is online. Every single thing is
It's
online.
in the packet right now, but are we gonna list it separately?
We always put up the budget presentation for the public to go to afterwards, just so they can flip through and enjoy yourself.
Pleasure.
On the website?
Yes,
Yep.
yeah, it always goes on the website. Yeah. So we can take a look at the next slide then. And this is just a quick look at sales tax history because Dorothea really does a great job at estimating the quarterly returns on sales tax for our village. And you can see that the projection that she has come up with this year is slightly lower than this past year because we are factoring in really what's happening with the economy nationally and also globally. And I reached out to our colleagues in the county legislature, and the county is expecting a bit of a shortfall as well. So I think this is a fair, conservative approach really going forward. And then the property tax history, what you're seeing with the bars going up is the actual property tax rates going back about 5 or 6 years. Relative to the percent increase, and you can see from last year to this year, it's dropped not quite 50%. So we're looking at a 4.4% increase that really helps us take care of cost of living and things like that. I think it's really a modest increase at this point, given the financial uncertainty, but I think it's fair. And if we take a look at what does that mean on average per household, it's less than $100 of an increase, around $95 on average for a household. Yeah. This is the one I think you wanted to speak to, yeah. Again, this happened about 3 years ago when Dorothea became treasurer. She helped us implement best practices because the general fund is a separate tax base from our sewer funds, our sewer rents. That's two distinct tax bases. We treat them as separate departments and they kind of have to stand on their own. So we're taking a look now at the revenues that are coming in, excuse me, for the sewer for this coming year. Projection, if you want to speak.
Yep. This year's budget for the sewer totally is in the 800,000 range, which is much higher than previous budget years. typically it's around 450. The reason is we have a major purchase in this budget of 300,000 for the flush truck. So that has
Vintage
changed.
flush truck.
Yes, that has changed the budget. Next year, with the multi-year plan, we have progressed a projected about a $450,000 budget. So what we're seeing to offset that is the use of reserves of 270,000 to help. In addition, we're appropriating some of the fund balance. It's a healthy fund balance with sewer. This is a planned use of the fund balance
Mhm.
by the board. So that's why these numbers, year to year, the sewer budget kind of goes depending on its expenses, and you see it more than you would see with the general fund.
Yeah, yeah, thank you for explaining that. And then also, once we purchase that new flush truck, what is sort of the lifespan of that truck? Roughly?
At least 25 years.
Okay, so that helps. Another,
That's why I think about this one.
I know. So
It'll be a
another-
year and a half.
It'll be another vintage truck in 25 years. Okay. So now we're taking a look at our sewer appropriations and, you know, how we're really, looking at this as a department.
Right,
Right.
and where you're gonna see that flush truck is under street maintenance of 300,000. It's
Yeah.
just the labeling per our book that tells us where to put things, and that's where it falls.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, so what comes next? Hopefully we have a budget vote coming next. But also, we just wanted to call your attention to, we're gonna have a very busy season in the village. It is the 200th anniversary of the canal. And so there's going to be a number of sort of mini events throughout the season, culminating in September on a Sunday afternoon. We are delighted that we will be receiving, along with the flotilla, the Seneca Chief, reopening, essentially reenacting the opening of the Erie Canal. And the Seneca Chief, for those of you that don't know, it is a hand-built boat that is a replica of DeWitt Clinton's packet boat that he took down the canal and did the marrying of the waters with the canal and the Hudson River. And pleased to say that they're also going to be bringing along some water from Pittsburgh for the reenactment of the marrying of the waters. So we're going to have a wonderful all-American picnic on Shane Place. And we'll be able to tour the Seneca Chief, the Rivery and the Sand Patch. And listen to live music and have a lot of fun and celebrate. So. And actually, that's kind of the big overview of the budget. If anybody has any questions, if there's any questions online, please don't hesitate to ask, but we can certainly bring it back to the board.
Okay, are we good with the PowerPoint or? Board good?
Yeah, everybody good? Okay. If you want to just.
Yep, give me,
we can reassemble the board on camera. Okay.
Nice job.
Yeah, it's a big overview, you know, the big picture, as we say. Yeah. Okay. Any discussion with the board before we open the hearing? Okay, is there a motion?
Make a motion to open the public hearing for the 2025-26.
A second,
Thank you, roll call.
Trustee Wilkes.
Aye.
Trustee Marshall.
Aye.
Trustee Limbeck.
Aye.
Trustee Cove.
hi,
Mayor Plummer.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, the public hearing is now open. Is there anyone in the audience wishing to speak? Or is there anyone online with any comments or questions?
Dorothea, how many people are online now?
Let's see, did we lose anybody? We have 11.
No, that's good.
That is-
Nothing?
Okay. Well, and also as you know, we've said, the budget's available online in the presentation, and so
Yep.
anybody can always, you know, give us a call if they do have any, you know, very specific questions, we're happy to help.
Yep.
Is there a motion?
Motion to close the public hearing.
A second,
Roll call.
Okay, trustee Limbeck.
Aye.
Trustee Wilkes.
Aye.
Trustee Cove.
Aye.
Trustee Marshall.
Aye.
Mayor Plummer.
Aye. Okay, it's back to the board.
great work,
Hey, everybody, great work, and Dave, big shout out to Dave too. for
yes, Absolutely.
Sometimes we see him when he would come in.
Only
So
time
he
you saw
can
it.
help us with the budget. And Dorothy and Zach, really, you
Yeah,
just great work. And also thanks to Melissa too. I know she helped with the
assists with the
presentation,
PowerPoint, yeah.
which is great. So,
Yeah.
it's good teamwork. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I did want to compliment everybody in the administration as well, mayor, organizing collectively as a board before, but. You know, arriving at a budget like this, which could be, if not for the support of all of us, a more contentious type of thing. It really was nice to work with everybody and have this second,
so,
have this budget come through, so. We appreciate the capital plan, we're gonna keep that up to the new board members, that's the goal, every year, update it, plan 5 years forward. And then we do what we need to in the budget. Just a comment on the increase, and I know Mary, you referenced it, you know, 4.4% increase is pretty high for everything that we're getting done in the context.
You
of-
said minor?
Yeah,
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
okay.
You guys said higher.
Yeah, I said higher.
Yeah.
but also with the inflation that we've had over the last
Yeah.
5 years.
Yeah.
And no reassessments, to
Right.
be able to just be modest like this,
Mhm.
and address what we need, get a lot done. I know we're doing some with debt financing with
Mhm.
roads, but that's, you know, good long-term debt to finance things
Yeah.
that we need, so. You know, open to any comment, but again, nice
Mhm.
job, and I
That's
know-
4.4% increase.
Yeah, and that averages to about $95 on average, for a house.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any other comments from the board, or we could entertain?
Yeah, I was just gonna, to Zach and your team, you guys are doing God's work with, some equipment that definitely needs some update.
Bring on the duct tape.
I think that's
Yeah.
what's kind of stood out to me was, like, wow,
Yeah.
we definitely need to find a way to make sure that that is fixed, because I think for the residents, that's one of the major things, right? We kind of take it for granted, the amount of work that you guys do for us here. How much is done kind of behind the scenes when we're at work or, we're not at the house. So for you to be able to do that, be able to do it efficiently, effectively, and again, as vehicles get older, they get more expensive, they're not as effective anymore, so it's good to see that kind of coming in there and making your job easier. And our lives better. So, thank you.
No, thanks for that, definitely. Any other comments or is there a motion?
Now, I just want to clarify, they closed, but you closed for the portion of the sewer and the general fund.
Right,
The public hearing for the refuse district
Thank you
is
for-
remaining open,
yes.
which will be hopefully discussed in the next meeting.
Got it.
Yeah, just want to make sure, that residents understand that, so we're looking at sewer in general.
Yes, and if you would like to,
Specifically this evening.
if the board would like to proceed, adopting this budget tonight would be fabulous.
So we can just adopt the general and sewer.
Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely.
That would be the motion.
Make a motion to approve the budget as presented,
With the
General.
exception,
with the exception of the refuge district.
So,
we have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
I'm so excited. We're so excited.
This is like a big moment for us. Just so you know.
I'm happy. Okay,
the
trustee,
same.
I know, it's shining.
And it's not snowing. Okay.
Trustee Limbeck,
Aye.
trustee Wilkes,
Aye.
trustee Marshall,
Aye.
trustee Coe,
Aye.
Mayor Plummer.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay.
Make a motion to approve the sewer budget, or is that part of the?
That's part of
Just
it.
part of
You
it.
did both.
Yeah, you did one stop.
Did it all,
shopping.
great.
You did it all.
And then
General and
the
sewer,
multi-year plan.
correct. And that's the next step. That's another public hearing.
Maybe open public hearings for the one capital plan.
My second.
Roll call, please.
Okay, trustee Marshall,
Aye.
trustee Wilkes,
Aye.
trustee Coe,
Aye.
trustee Limbeck,
Aye.
Mayor Plummer.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, the hearing is open for the multi-year financial and capital plan. Is there anyone in the audience wishing to speak? Or online? Nice to meet the sun.
Make a motion to close the public hearing for the long-term capital
My
plan.
second.
Okay, trustee Coe,
Aye.
trustee Wilkes,
Aye.
trustee Marshall,
Aye.
trustee Limbeck,
Aye.
Mayor Plummer.
Aye.
Motion passes.
This is,
Anything,
Yeah.
as we talked
Right.
about before, so again, I just want to stress the value of this and the Abilities Act for you to know what's in there, what you can plan for, and, you know, on a year-by-year basis, you know, work with Dorothea closely to make amendments and updates as needed. But what I did want to call attention to the new members of the board, when you look at the long-term capital, and to the public, when you look at the long-term capital plan for the 25-26 year, in the year that we obtain in the next budget, funding that in the subsequent year shows is coming from general, we instead show it as going to reserve.
That was gonna be the question.
It's a little tricky, and the reason why is when we adopt the budget, we want to adopt the budget knowing these dollars are going for these things definitively, right? And so by, in the budget, pushing them to reserves, they can't get out of that reserve column without a motion. They can't shift somewhere else, right? It's a way to ensure that that money, if it isn't spent, goes to reserves rather than the potential risk that it doesn't get spent and is used for something else. So it's basically a security of adopting the budget to ensure that money is being used towards these or future long-term plans by the fact that it's getting into that reserve.
My question with that would be, do we already know that it's earmarked for whatever the item is going into it?
So
But do
yes,
we know that it's going to be spent 99%, you know? At which point, why is it?
Dorothy, you want to weigh in a little bit on that because.
Yeah, we know what makes up what goes into that reserve. We know the items that the amounts equal. If I did my math correct, we're good. And to what trustee Marshall is saying is in the general budget, the way the lines are set, I have the freedom to move lines to cover negatives or whatever's needed to move the process along, make those adjustments. So typically, if that was in there, I wouldn't take from those lines because he can be scary if I spend his money inadvertently. But what we're doing is saying it's going into reserve. So let's say Zach brings the truck purchase to the board. What we do is we take a second motion, A, approve the purchase of the truck, B, now we're going to transfer the money from reserve to vehicle purchase, and then a PO is issued. So we are controlling it that way.
So it's almost like it ensures that the cash is not fungible to the extent that it could go to anything.
Yeah.
Theoretically.
correct.
In other words, it doesn't just go back in the general
In the
fund.
general fund.
Right.
Right.
If we did it the other way, and honestly, I prefer the other way, but hey, because it gets a little confusing when you look at it on a multi-year plan, and that's the only reason I'm saying that. If we put it into that line and funded the line, let's say we get to year end and it's not spent, it goes directly into the fund balance, then the board can make that decision,
And
let's
then we can
say.
allocate from
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
You could say,
Which-
in the end of the day, we're
Which is
still
gonna save
hoping to
the
put it
balance.
into the reserves.
Yeah,
Yeah,
understood.
Okay,
yeah.
So that's the only thing that's kind of confusing about the long-term capital plan. And in all future years, you don't see it saying going to reserves. It's just coming out of the general fund balance.
And then, you know, the other thing too, just about purchasing the trucks, we're kind of a little bit ahead of that curve with tariffs coming in. Just so the public knows that we were getting these purchase orders in essentially ahead of potentially significant cost increases.
Yeah, that was, yes.
Okay,
yeah.
just so people are aware.
And it may also speak to the fact that with the funds going to reserves, if one of them goes up substantially, and Zach's like, hey, it's probably better to fix this thing for a year or two. Then we know that money's gonna be there 2 years from now, and he doesn't have to worry about soliciting us for money in the subsequent budget cycle,
Mhm.
right? It's there, right?
And then those reserves, I'm assuming they sit somewhere getting a cash yield.
Sure, no, they do. We have separate accounts for those and they're reviewed and I rotate them in CDs and depending on interest rate and they're reviewed. Anything I can put into a CD and gain interest on, that's what I'm doing.
Yeah,
And on the budget, just to talk about the budget that we already passed, but I think you only embedded about 21,000 in interest.
Yeah.
Right? And we're earning more than,
Correct, but I don't trust.
that's right.
yeah.
And
Being conservative.
I'm, as the board has known, I'm always very conservative.
Yeah.
Serves us well.
It's my nature.
Okay, great. So any other board comment? I'll make a motion. Make a motion to approve the long-term capital plan as presented,
And as amended.
as amended.
Second.
Now, can we have a second? Roll call, please.
Sure. Trustee Limbeck,
Fine.
trustee Marshall, trustee Cove, trustee Wilkes,
Aye.
Mayor Plummer,
Hi.
motion passes.
We're cruising along.
Thank you very much.
No, this is great.
It was
Yes,
an-
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
No, thank you. It was an awesome budget turn. I think we were able to keep meetings under control and we got the job done.
Well, and I think too, what we're really seeing is, sort of where things started out, and where we are now. Things are becoming more streamlined, more efficient. We don't need to have 20 meetings, we're sort of current meetings as we move forward, and I'm really pleased with that, and I think, you all should be, I think it's really great. Okay, department reports.
Are we gonna go back
Yeah,
to
we're
the
gonna go
building?
back.
Oh, we have to go back to the building safety, thank you, I skipped it, you're right. Let's, yeah, this is important. Village Hall employee and building safety. Jeff, thank you for drafting the policy.
The employees did a lot of it by
Yeah,
searching around
Yeah.
and coming up with different thoughts and ideas that other municipalities have used, and sort of try to streamline it a little bit. And that should be right.
Okay. So the board is aware of where this is coming from. I think it's necessary. Or at least we have two parts to this. One is the actual security pieces that I sent you the quotes for, and this is the policy related to our interaction with the public.
So this is basically made up of a total cost, it's your policy. And I'll be reflecting what you want, so
Mhm.
we can change it however it wants to change it.
Okay, that's not in my pocket. This is awesome.
It was
Sure.
sent out. It was in the update.
I think it's very well needed, I'm just
Yeah,
curious, we do
you're
have the
right.
funds, the 21,000.
Oh, related to the funds?
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll talk about that.
Yeah, why don't we get to
With-
the policy,
okay.
and then you put minutes.
I think-
over there.
I think the policy is first.
Okay,
Yeah,
and I think the policy reads real well.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
yeah,
it,
no, I support it, we need it.
I think it's declaring the public areas and the non-public areas and which would help us in the
And I'm
future.
glad that we included the DPW.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It-
Yeah.
We have an overall concern,
the whole
Zach
thing.
shares concern for our department. We share the same concern for him. So, yeah. Yeah, we like each other.
So we just gonna make a motion.
Yeah, we just have to make a motion.
Adopt this? Is that what
Or
this is
I think
about?
there's a resolution to
Resolution.
make the resolution.
After the resolution has the policy attached to it. hopefully.
Okay, so a motion,
So I'll make the motion to adopt the resolution, the policy that was developed for the employee and building safety.
A second?
Ooh.
Sorry.
we had a try, that was good.
I think Lisa got you.
You're it.
Okay, roll call, please.
Trustee Wilkes.
Aye.
Trustee Cove.
Hi.
Trustee Marshall. Trustee Limbeck.
Aye.
Mayor Plummer.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Oh, that's great. Thanks, everybody, and thanks to the staff and for Jeff for helping with that. Okay, so next up are the quotes on
Correct,
improving security and safety measures.
correct. There's two sets of quotes.
Yeah, so that one I couldn't see because it's so small on my computer.
Yeah,
It was so small. I just looked at it. I was trying to pull it up and doing my classes.
there's two sets of quotes. One is for cameras, and one is for the doors. And there's two thoughts that were provided by Doyle. One is just for the main doors coming in. The other one
Into the office.
into the office. The other one is for the main doors coming into the office and our outer main doors.
So these are cameras? that
No, we're
just-
not talking cameras yet.
This is, okay, this is
Locks.
lighting?
The locks with the fobbing
And intercom.
and intercom. So the process would be the resident would hit the intercom. We'd ask, how can we help you? And they'd give a state and we'd open the doors. And let 'em in.
You know,
Is it like a buzz?
A buzz.
yeah, the school district has it, where you.
Yeah, and this is common. I've talked to a lot of the villages with this whole situation that happened. A lot of them have this exact same thing. They have to state their intention to come in because they're coming into the non-public area.
Is this kind of like a Ring doorbell?
little bit more than that,
So more,
more secure.
This is
It's,
on that door,
it's on that door.
not the big door, not the out.
The glass doors.
the
glass
glass
door.
The double
Glass
doors
door.
coming into the office, this is the first.
That would be the buzzard on there,
Mhm.
okay,
And that would be considered non-public from that point. forward.
when they come into the building.
As soon as.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No.
No,
as
this,
soon as they
because
enter the office, they come into it,
there's the designated
Counter.
counter,
Counter's public.
yeah, that's public too.
Right,
but they
that's
can't go
public.
behind the
But
counter,
again.
that's a.
But
non-
We get the
non-public.
sense of their intention when they're coming in.
Okay, so there's a public access point, meaning these locked doors.
Mhm.
So you come in the main door, it's nice and open, you walk into the foyer,
Mhm.
and then you ring the bell. You get to find out their intent, why they're here, etc. And then you let them in.
Correct.
Um, my question to Jeff is. Under what basis could you deny entry at that point to a public space being in
The
the private
desk.
county? Yeah, I'm just asking a question, I'm not saying.
No,
No, but just,
No.
what does
Trying
it
to
look like?
understand. Yeah,
Mhm.
Going public to public.
yeah, so you're basically putting a barrier in between public
Before
and public.
public.
And so what is it that person is going to say,
I can't imagine that we would deny them access
right?
unless they said, I am here to harass you and swear at you and yell at you, in which case we probably wouldn't let them in, but that's not gonna happen. You know, you're gonna, but they get a warning of what's happening. They look out the doors, you see the person, they see this person with the cameras and blah, and blah, and blah. They get ready for one circumstance, if they see that somebody they know is a resident who's gonna come in and pay their sewer bill or whatever, they get ready for another one, but it gives them that
And that's
half
important,
second mental adjustment,
and the sheriff's office
figure out what it is.
has always said that all of this is literally a matter of seconds.
Mhm.
You know, to make that judgment. Are we safe? Is this somebody, you know, so this is just that one more opportunity for the staff to make that assessment.
So let me tie it a little more tightly. So we've told the person in your policy, and now we've signed it, that there's no recording, video, audio, or photography beyond that point. So if the person comes in, obviously prepared to record and take pictures, and it's not a public hearing, it's not a public meeting, then that glass barrier will get the people ready, because you're going to have trained them,
Mhm.
their mind in one place about how they're going to deal with this person
Mhm.
effectively and constructively.
So let me ask you a question. So right now, it's locked,
No, it's,
No,
okay? But we could lock it. You could lock the inside, right? Why?
that was the initial thought, and then the building inspector reminded me of the fire law. That I cannot lock employees in, we have no immediate exit. So the new locks that would go in would give us the ability to push out. Yeah, it's because it's a mag lock, it would allow us to push out. If we have that lock and we have to fumble to get out, it's a problem with the fire law.
So is there a way to have that door locked, but you can get out from the inside? With just a regular lock? I mean, why?
But then we
can't
don't
you
have
go
that interaction outside of the glass. We don't get the speaker,
No, you
it
could
kind
see
of
the-
works.
You could see the person, but you could still have a lock where you can still push out if you need to. I'm just trying, $20,000.
Okay, let me
is a
take
lot
it,
of money. I just
okay,
wanna try
the
to
bigger,
justify that.
that bigger amount is for doing also security on the outer doors. If you're gonna
oh,
do
for
it,
all those doors.
it's for all those doors. I would suggest just doing the inner,
Oh, okay.
And that's
what,
10,000.
That's half.
So
half of it.
10,000 for the inner.
yes.
And the
You
inner,
gotta rename it.
no, they didn't have to rehang them.
Well, there's a
Oh, they
lot,
didn't have to?
they're not gonna have to,
No.
Oh, good.
because
Yeah.
of the way the lock
It's safe
works,
on there, yeah, but
because
it's
it's
different.
a magnet,
So the $10,000 is for the lock
Main.
system and the intercom?
correct.
Mhm.
So
Correct.
the intercom and the lock system is $10,000.
Yeah, that's the smaller of the two quotes you got. Yeah, the
Yeah,
office
that's-
only,
yes.
it's 9,987.
Yep,
All right, so let's go back, that's just hypothetically, so we've got the intercom, so somebody comes in, you can see who they are, they're not a resident, you've never seen them before. And they speak to you,
Mhm.
I wanna come here because, I'm looking at a village book or a pamphlet.
That's fine, we open the door. We open the door.
So the likelihood of them coming in and saying on the intercom, I wanna come in and shoot you, is probably very, very small. I guess I'm just trying to see, what is the intercom gonna do differently?
It's slowing down the process. It's,
But
Also,
the
I
thing
would
for an
assume-
intercom, instead of waiting there until somebody can access them.
Okay, hang on 1 second, yeah, Dave.
so I would assume for example, the individual who came in previously, you
mhm.
would be able to see them in the glass and know, nope,
Right,
you're not gonna get.
right.
With the intercom system.
I still have to let
You
him
have to let
in.
him in.
No, I get it, but I'm saying it allows you to get ready for
Yes,
that.
Yes, he should have spoke. He could have said, I'm coming to film, or
Exactly.
I just want to enter the public space.
Mhm.
They would give us a heads up there was an issue.
But it gives you the ability to have that.
It's
time.
slowing it
But
down.
the lock does that, the lock does that, so the lock system is preventing anybody from coming in. The intercom system, they're just gonna say, I wanna come in because I wanna, like I said, see a pamphlet, then you've gotta let them in, because you're still in a public space. Correct, so I guess I just don't understand the intercom piece. I get the lock, you've gotta be able to see them, it's gonna slow them down, but they still have access to the public space, which is right after that door, so the intercom system just
If they-
seems, I
If
don't
they have a
know.
push button lock, how would they be able to talk to anybody through the?
Right, it
glass
gives them the
without-
capability of talking to us in the
They'd
office.
have to yell, they'd have to scream and say,
Right,
But do we have the ability to prevent them from coming in?
they have a gun.
theoretically, yeah.
Well, wait a minute,
If it's a
wait,
big
hold on.
incident,
So again, I'm just,
There's a threat.
again, so they come in, we don't see any gun, you could see them through the glass. But they still have the right to come into the public space, which is there, so they've slowed down because the glass doors are locked.
Yep.
So obviously you can see a gun, you can see if they're crazy, I guess. But they still then have to come into the public space, so I guess I just don't understand the intercom piece. That's my only.
I think it's
concern.
because you're going from one area to another. It gives that area a chance to speak to the other area. It gives them a buzzer, they hit the buzzer. It alerts us that someone's at the door. We get to talk to them and then we get to let them in.
But we're still supposed to talk to them at the desk.
Yes, but let's say different scenario, and I hate to go to this scenario. You've got an active shooter, you got somebody and you see it's clearly gonna be a bad situation. It gives you that second to, no, you're not opening the lock. Yes, you're hitting the panic button. It gives you that second before things start changing. Yes, are they gonna get through those doors? They got a gun. Absolutely, they're gonna get through those doors. They're glass. But it slows it down. They
I bet
gotta,
the lock does, but why does the intercom slow down? I don't understand. the
it's,
intercom.
it's,
allows them to stay for business.
Yeah,
What do you hear?
it allows you to be able to communicate with the person on the other side of the door.
Correct.
That's locked out.
There's a reason why the school district does it, and it's that same reason. You're there to state your business. It does give people a moment. Especially if they're identifying somebody who regularly comes in and harasses.
correct.
And there's internal training and protocols that are in place. I can tell you that the sheriff's office has said repeatedly. When there are circumstances that are objectionable or can go off the rails, everything comes down to seconds. If you have 5 more seconds, if you have 3 more seconds, if you have just a few seconds to hit the button, a few seconds to call 911. It's all about seconds, and I think this is giving our staff a safe environment. Where if it comes down to a matter of seconds, we know that we have done everything possible to protect them.
I just wanna say that the whole situation that happened with the auditors that came through, it really shined a light on how exposed these guys are.
Yeah,
The emails, the phone calls that they were getting just short of death threats. I mean,
yeah, right up to the edge.
yeah, there should be some precautions taken for the staff that are working in this.
It
office.
just gives us a second to try to establish intent.
Mhm.
I can't say.
Again, I don't deny, I understand, but all I'm saying is the extremeness of it. I mean, I understand the lock piece. I guess I just don't understand the intercom piece. That just. I
That's
just
the
don't know.
way for them
An
to buzz.
alternative would be to remodel the entrance coming in, so there wouldn't be a clear access coming into the
Right.
office. And there would be an actual counter with some wall space.
And a little
maybe
cup.
Sheet of glass that someone could talk through. But
Yeah,
that's gonna cost
A
a little
couple
more.
villages have installed bulletproof glass.
Yeah, they have remodeled, changed their whole
Yeah.
entrances.
Is there another village that you know of that does the?
Yes.
push button and the intercom?
Yep.
Do you know who that is?
East Rochester.
East
Yeah.
Rochester does that?
Yeah.
East
Did they
Rochester.
just installed it?
It's
No.
been there for years.
It's been there a long time.
Churchville no, Brockport did it
Brockport.
because of the situation. Churchville did it. It's, most of the villages have done it. They told me, yeah, we have an intercom, so they buzz us
And
and
they've
they
got
let
camera
us know.
system and live monitors.
Yeah,
One question, do our phones have intercom capability?
that's a good question.
The municipality where I am, they have a code word, and like, let's say somebody sees it or whatever, they can.
Yeah, we have intercom to all.
Yeah, oh,
hotels.
yeah,
So-
we do.
so
Yeah.
that-
We can alert everybody,
Okay, the other thing they've done is the personal fobs.
right?
you know.
Well, that's part of it. We would have
Okay.
fobs to come in, so we could come directly in, we can hit the fob. Zach would have a fob to be able to enter the office. You won't be breaking out
No,
a
no,
key.
this is a fob that if. you
Oh, a
hear-
warning.
Yeah, no, it calls Monroe County.
Oh, no, we don't have that. What we do
We
have,
other ways that. we
ways
handle
of
it that-
alerting.
That we can talk about offline rather on in public.
Yeah.
Because it's a security measure for
Okay.
safety.
yeah, we have other ways.
Does this in any way, affect the integrity of the historical?
Doyle is well aware of the,
Yeah. They're on it.
the thing. We went over that was top,
Mhm.
we're maintaining the same doors.
Yeah.
They're gonna run the lines to be as elegant as they can be. We're definitely, that was top concern.
Mhm.
The other question I have is whether or not we install them or not. Let's assume we do. Do you, at your discretion within, the office, have the ability to keep them open should you want to on a nice day? Or because you're feeling safe and secure, are you required to have them locked in intercom, or can you choose to?
I would double check with them. I would assume there's a way to
Okay.
override the system to allow that
Yes.
to happen.
I'm always.
If you have a system.
Yeah, you gotta use it.
Yeah.
You can't turn it off.
But-
on.
For another
Why-
business.
The only time I would think, and then not to,
Want to take on the liability.
Yeah, well, that's why, how would you know it's gonna stay?
the,
Just open a window.
Well, that's only presuming that your insurance is lower as a result of the security system, so that's one follow-up. If we get this system, does
Yeah,
our
does our
insurance
insurance
cost
go down?
affect liability?
I am reached out to Gary on that one.
I think that there is a liability issue, but there's also the. Nice days don't make any difference, I mean, if
Right.
somebody's somebody's coming. and
Right.
I don't think you should ever feel like you should open those doors.
Mhm.
Like the high school's not going to open.
No, the high school
won't
do it.
Because it's a nice day.
Yeah.
No,
This may be the same thing that we talked about last night, which is drafting policy that stands the test of time. And let's say we go 3 years from now, and based on time, you feel more confident and comfortable having a system similar to what we have now versus that, right? My question is do we have to take the security devices off in order to allow it to be as it was, or can we just choose to have it be different?
I would assume there's a way to deactivate
Yeah.
things. I would assume. I think that would be part of the built-in, but
And my question then to Jeff is if we install it to the full extent presented, are we then subject to the requirement to forever use it unless we deinstall it? Or can at some point along the way we choose not to use it?
I can always change the product. I mean, I can't imagine a situation where if you had it, anyone would recommend that you.
Yeah.
remove it.
Well,
Yeah.
again, I'm leaving it up to the staff and the administration, right? I'm not trying to dictate anything here. I'm trying to create flexibility and create safety. And now we want it. We may not always want it, but now we, and maybe we do want it forever.
Well, we can cross the bridge when we get there.
That's
Yeah.
what I'm trying to.
That's, I
I just
think.
wanna
I
make
would-
sure that-
I would say in 30 years of doing this. The fact that we're looking at this is sad to me.
Mhm.
But I feel it's 100% necessary.
Mhm.
Times have changed. Things aren't what they were when I started. They weren't what they were 10 years ago. It
Yeah.
seems to keep changing. And do I hope they go back? Absolutely. But I think you address now.
Let me ask this too. So besides the installation cost, which is about the 10,000, and then is there a monthly cost for
Yes.
security?
Yeah, that's the,
So it's
Yeah.
$300 a month for monitoring.
yep. And I know Doyle had mentioned they're gonna work with us on it, depending on what we did, but that's what the worst it would be, is the 300.
Yeah.
You also have the signage that you need as part of this?
We'll be adding everything we need, yeah.
Okay.
And where do we get this money? Is it?
Well, we
budgeted or
have
is
to
this
maneuver
something-
some things around in the budget.
But we can do it.
Can I say something about what I did not include in the policy? The staff wanted me to include, well, not wanted me to. Their suggestions that came to me included training. A couple other things that I don't remember right off the top of my head, but I didn't put them in the policy because I thought they added liability in terms of we hadn't done the training, blah, blah, blah. But the staff should have training about how to deal with situations
Mhm.
like what they just went through.
Mhm.
So that should be part of your thinking about where's the money coming from. And that training probably ought to happen sooner rather than later, because we'll probably get another visit
Yeah,
anytime.
there's no
soon.
doubt. Yeah,
Anytime soon.
they've already been back to Brockport.
Do we know
And
if training's
the police.
available?
Go ahead.
This is where I have to reach out and find who does this type of training and who
Well, the
would.
sheriff's department can help us,
Cottage industry now, you would think. I mean,
but the sheriff's department can help us with that.
Okay.
That's when I spoke to Todd. Yeah, they can help. us.
And that just is, the bidding process or the quote process, obviously, this was a more like get it done, call people to, we got. How does it work with regards to, other vendors? I mean, I know when I initially got a
Correct.
security alarm. Some of this slightly smaller independent vendors have the same equipment, contract out to the same call centers. And can offer a lesser rate. And, how did we do that?
OGS state bid. State bid,
Mhm.
To state bid?
state bid. They have the state bid for security. It also can be declared an emergency.
So did we go with the state bid process?
Oh, absolutely. If I'm
Yeah.
gonna get a state bid, I'm always gonna lock it down with the state bid. That makes it easy.
Okay.
We don't have to put it out to bid when we
don't
get
have to
state
put it
bid.
out to bid. These are, and were there other vendors within the state bid? Or-
Usually the state warrants to a certain bidder in an area, so, well, and
They
they
get
tied to the
category
contract.
To
Okay.
serve, yeah.
So we have the opportunity, if we wanted to look at other vendors, but from a time perspective, at this point, it's suggested that
Yeah.
we don't.
Yeah, and Doyle handles the other systems in our building. So they're a preferred vendor in that way, because they already know the building, they're already dealing with our fire alarm system and everything else, so they can tie everything.
Okay, yeah, and we've been around.
Do we potentially have $5,000 from the heating fuel?
Then you're looking at next year's.
I know.
I was gonna say, can we pull it from there?
No.
So let's just talk again about village safety in general. So not too long ago, we had State Street closed down for 3 hours because there was a threat to the library.
Mhm.
Okay? Now, has the town decided to put in some security system because of that threat that literally closed down the village street? Because of that incident? I mean, I guess I'm just trying to put things in perspective because, you know, the world's a crazy place, I understand that. But we talked about the schools having this, and that's understandable, you know, it's filled with children. I guess my concern is, you know, did the town feel that that was such a threat that they're gonna go and spend, you know, $10,000 on a security
I
system?
want to
for
talk
the
about that
library?
threat because it was deemed to be a hoax. So I think,
Okay.
you know, there was a different outcome. I think what happened here with the staff was frightening.
Sure.
And it was a real person who took things up right up to the edge. And then for almost 2 weeks,
Mm.
just harassing phone calls, one after another. We had to end up forwarding all the calls to voicemail and screening. We had to shut down our Facebook page. We had employees who were all over Facebook and social media with swastikas on their chest. That's different from a false bomb threat. This is real, it's happened and it's still ongoing.
And I think you're talking an overall, a call in, and if we received a bomb threat call, our reaction would be the same.
Mhm.
If we would shut down the hall, we would shut down the street, everything would be the same. We're talking person to person in
Personal
person.
safety.
It's a total, it's not, either is not good. I'm not trying to say one's better than the other. It's just more intimate. Is what I think I'm trying to say.
Different functions too,
Yeah,
what the
Yeah.
library does versus what the
Mhm.
office.
Sure,
is.
sure.
Let's
Yeah,
put it this
yeah.
way.
I'm just saying it's community.
Yeah, David has the floor.
So I'm seeing that each trustee earns $7,115.82 per year. I'd be willing to give that away to you guys to help pay for this, because that's, I mean, it's a safety issue.
and that's great. Different budget.
But I'm just saying, you know what I mean, like.
Yeah.
I have, I do have a poll. I do have a
We
poll to
have a
cover,
little Something we've talked about.
but we need to go to, let's go to the next step. Okay, if everybody's good with the discussion on the door and the sun is, huh? Yeah, can we?
Yeah,
I was thrilled with the sun earlier, but not so much now. The next one is the cameras.
Which right now there are.
They're the blink
blinks.
cameras,
blanks.
they're blinks and
Easy.
They're
maintenance
passive.
Heavy, the batteries burn out quickly, the sensitivity is odd, the way that it times everything that happens around here, you can't pick it up. We've had multiple accidents in the parking lot that have happened, that the cameras, even though we have plenty of them. They're triggered by the motion, and the motion is usually, or the cameras kick on after the motion, or whatever's already happened.
They're not adequate.
no,
They're just not
No.
at all.
They're consumer versus commercial.
Yeah.
Correct.
It's something
We need
that you would put
hardware.
at your house,
Real
to
deal.
watch birds fly by.
we have a squirrel that hangs out back here and loves the one
Like
blink.
squirrel.
That's all I can tell you.
Yeah.
To put cameras on the building as recommended is $21,144.22, and that gives us a better monitoring system,
That's live monitoring,
live monitoring,
24/7.
which gives you that additional chance to see what's happening or to go back and see what did happen. You know, we come in, something happened with the building, we can go back and look at the cameras. And it's, I'm not gonna say where they would be put, but they would be put in appropriate spaces to monitor the building.
And is there a monthly cost to that monitoring?
No. I think that's all part of our existing.
It's part of, you know, I think it's part of that.
It'd probably be part of the package.
The $300 a month?
Now, did they say that it's going to be 70 hours of labor?
That's what they have in there, and I think that's an estimate.
Yeah.
But again, they're dealing with the buildings, so they're taking that extra time to make sure the wires are.
Yeah. You know, since they know we're worried about the integrity of the.
And then to go to the question, do other villages have cameras? Absolutely.
Mhm. They all, do. Yes, every single village has cameras.
They have cameras.
Now, what does this do for security down at, DPW?
Nothing. And that's the darn shame.
That's a whole other thing.
That is a whole
Talk about
nother
this.
thing that has to be addressed at some point. What we did when this happened, we went immediately to look at ourselves. We have looked in the past at DPW. They need cameras as well.
Is there any economy of scale if we do it now? I mean,
Yeah, we should.
Like a bundle.
Yeah, package deal.
I can reach out and find out,
Yeah,
you know, what it would be.
already into it by initiating it all over again.
that's a
Correct.
good point.
Does this have to come before the public at all? Like, do we do a public hearing about this? No. And is there anybody online that's interested in talking about? I'm just kind of getting.
Nobody
Curious to
has
see
raised
what
a
the
hand
public-
or put anything in the Q&A at this point.
I mean, I think we need to, you know, we're talking about it in general terms, but the specifics of what security would look like for our buildings, I'm not comfortable getting into any level of detail.
I just
But I
think
think
that
you've raised a good point,
if
Sharon.
we're buying
you
new
know,
equipment.
yeah.
You know. Just to add on to that with the bathroom addition that's hopefully gonna be going on, we're gonna have to bring Doyle in to do some resetting anyway, because the exterior door is being moved out, so they're gonna have to come in and
Oh, that's a good point.
change things,
So maybe,
so. It might open the opportunity for us to go with like a fob type system, what's happening up here, or
Mhm.
starting.
At least
to
one
look
can
into
see the
cameras.
pictures.
Yeah.
yeah,
It's just, you know, it's exploratory, it doesn't have to be anything set in stone, but.
Yep. Okay, so here we are.
Here we are.
I mean, I definitely think we need to do the double doors coming into the office for sure. I
Mhm.
just think that's not even.
The locking and intercom.
I think, yes, I think it's about the safety of the people who work here and any residents who are here as well, you know, at the time if something happens. I think we're like one of the last villages to actually implement something like this.
Can I ask another question? Does the town have this system?
They have a different layout.
They have a different layout and
When you walk
I'm aware
in,
of some of their protocols and some of their measures.
when you
that they
walk
do.
in, you have
You have the glass.
You have the glass,
installed.
you have a cubby to go to, a little window. It's not wide open to go into their areas. There's no, they have a little more sense of security, I would believe that provides.
And there's other protocols that they have as well.
Yeah.
So do they have cameras? Do we know?
I-
No. I mean, I think that's important for us to know. It's the same community.
I'd like
Interesting.
this.
I think we just need to take care of the people who work in our building.
Right now, we're sitting, how to cover this, this is the question. We haven't gotten to my financials, but there's contingency of 50,000 still sitting in one account
Last year.
for this year's budget right now.
In this year's contingency.
Yeah, it's still sitting there. We've been able to preserve it. We can reallocate that to the building.
So we would be looking at, if we're looking at these doors, we're looking for 10,000
Mhm.
and then the cameras for 20.
22.
And then 300,000.
So
Like
31,000,
Yeah.
32,000, and then 300 per
It's
month
12.
on an ongoing basis.
On an ongoing basis.
With potentially doing the DPW.
Right.
Yeah.
But potentially looking at the DPW when they reset
Yeah.
and look at that, and we can get a quote on that.
Contingency. That's a contingency.
That's why it's a contingency.
It's a
You know,
contingency. And understand, as we said, I don't like to spend money. I'm not asking this because I want to spend money and I want new fad thing. I like the old way. I like it was 30 years ago when I started in this business, but I just don't see a way to give comfort to the staff, reinforce that we're okay in our workplace, or at least gives us a little more control. Lets us know. I mean,
you know,
Well, I think we have an obligation to provide a safe work environment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Are those glass doors, bulletproof?
no,
No,
they are not.
they're
And-
it's all black. I mean,
That
it's
would be
essentially historic.
Very heavy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there's other security recommendations for that as well.
In schoolwork, you can put a film on there.
That's
On the glass.
exactly. That's, yeah, we
Yeah.
can talk to the sheriff. You got it. Yeah,
Yeah, and that
Sure.
slows it down,
yeah.
Again, that
It's all
adds-
about slow.
slows it down.
Okay, I mean, I'm ready to approve funding, at least, you know, to get the door done with the intercom and the cameras. And I do think we should definitely, I agree with John, like, let's take a look at, for DPW, let's get Doyle back in, but can we at least start the first phase of this, first part of this?
I'm okay with that.
Yeah,
And I can say Doyle is invested. They looked at this and they said, you know, they're several weeks out in a lot of projects. They're gonna try to move us up. They're willing to
yeah,
come
they
in on
understand the
weekends.
security issue. Yeah.
They
'Cause
totally
they've
get the
actually
problem.
worked on other villages. Yeah. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
What's the motion for?
To, go ahead with procuring the items discussed this evening for the cameras, the doors, the intercom system, and the monthly monitoring fee, as described in the quotes we've been given off of state bid.
And that's the two office doors?
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Okay,
was
just
gonna
so,
say,
yeah,
make
just
sure
to-
don't have the exterior.
yeah, because
Yeah.
if we need to, we can do that later. but-
Okay.
Second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Trustee Marshall. Trustee Wilkes.
Aye.
Trustee Cove.
Hi,
Trustee Limbeck.
Aye.
Mayor Plummer.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thanks, everybody. This is
Thank you.
important.
This
And I
will,
think-
oh, I need a transfer.
Yep, it's gotta be-
Make a motion to transfer from the contingency to cover the security measures just approved.
my second?
Trustee Limbeck.
Aye.
Trustee Marshall.
Aye.
Trustee Coe.
Aye.
Trustee Wilkes.
Aye.
Mayor Plummer.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, really. The employees will give you their heartfelt thanks.
Yeah,
Deserve to feel safe.
yeah, definitely.
It's, yeah, I just don't have other words for that.
Okay.
I was looking at our backpacks when we were a kid, and now they have over 3 plates in them.
Yeah.
Keeled out.
They do.
How what? Or how, what, they were,
They're like little kids, like,
yes.
5-year-old, they
Oh
have
my God.
level 3.
Mm.
Like it's,
That's great.
2, 2, 3 or something like that, it's terrible. Yeah.
Oh, they
Ridiculous.
really- yeah.
So.
Okay, now DPW report.
Are we?
Steve, for some reason, isn't here. Was there any questions I can pass on in his report? The board's just gonna accept.
Oh, you wanna do Steve's first? Oh, that DPW is at the top. of the list.
Is it?
That's okay.
That's different.
I know.
Mix it up a little.
Yeah, keep you guys on your toes.
Oh, yeah.
Well, sometimes I interchange what's sent to me in email and what's online on the calendar site. And under the building inspector's report, there's nothing. It's there.
That's because it came in late. If I get a chance, I update those with the update and I didn't get a chance. Cause
Guys.
We were just here 2 weeks ago too, reporting, so maybe Steve didn't have much.
I try to update when the packet updates, but I don't always get that opportunity.
Okay,
All right, so I guess we're good with Steve. So.
okay,
Okay.
moving along.
Do you end up reposting the packet though, when you then update the packet, when you go to do the history and with the minutes and all that? For example, if 6 months from now, I go back to the calendar and say, hey,
No.
what's the agenda?
No.
So the updated packet that you just sent to us, what's available to the public doesn't include the building inspector's report, and you're saying it never will,
Never will.
never will. Is that okay?
It's okay. It's, the posting of the packet is a courtesy and is as practicable. It's as practicable.
According to municipal law.
That's the law. That is the law. It,
That's just thinking, I like to see it, but.
it's as practicable. The minutes get posted, but they're posted in a different format. When we put out the packet, it doesn't include minutes, it doesn't include bill pay. Those do not have to be in the packet. So for many reasons, but minutes get posted, so there is updates in there.
But the agenda with the packet is never updated to the last agenda, or the last packet. It's
If I get a
updated.
chance, I do. If I don't, I don't. It's as practical. The documents are available by FOIL at any given time. It's not a big deal.
All I would say is that I think it reiterates the attempt to have the packet be put together as best we can when we post it, right? That's all.
I will make every attempt to do that. If that's what the board wants, I will make every attempt.
Okay,
Okay,
DPW. Hey, Zach. Okay. Anything for Zach?
Zach and I had a good garbage can walk.
Yeah.
We got our new garbage cans coming soon.
Were you
Good.
trash talking?
Yes, we were.
Come on.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Okay.
That's good.
Hard wine over
It's a hour too.
I'd just like to say that I had a meeting with Zach earlier this week and he gave me a really nice overview of what the DPW does, what the issues are, and where they're headed and how they're trying to provide the services for the roads. And I appreciated that very much. Thank you.
Good talk, John.
Okay, what do you have for us, Zach?
So a couple things that I did not include on my report, is one of them are the summer hours, hoping to be able to initialize them this year, the week of May 5th, which would be the first full week of May, if approved.
Yeah, just for the new trustees, we switched to summer hours for the DPW because the season starts in the village and it just gets crazy.
Yeah, and part of it's safety, part of
Yeah.
it's just efficiency, Fridays, once we get past Wednesday, sometimes the village is just a standstill with the amount of people and traffic pattern through here. I've counted, I'm probably sitting at the traffic light in Four Corners for about 2 weeks every year. So this minimizes that, especially with the crew running back and forth. So Fridays, I mean, once 10:30, 11 o'clock starts to, the traffic really starts to pick up, so. Unless we're really deep into something, we tend to be at a standstill, so, yeah, some hours.
Yeah, it's difficult for you to even get
They're
equipment
helping
back
for
to the
us.
shop sometimes.
So we
Yeah.
can start earlier in the day and then Monday through Thursday working through from 6 to 3:30. And then Fridays would be 6 to 10. So we're able to get in early, get as much done as possible. And then,
Yeah,
yeah,
and it's just more efficient.
it's more
really,
efficient,
through
it's
the
safer
summer.
too with all the traffic that's on the road, so. People use up them through here because they get frustrated sitting in traffic.
So do you need a motion
Yeah, I guess. Yeah,
to approve the summer hours commencing when?
yeah.
May 15th and it,
May
Make that.
5th.
May,
fifth.
oh, yeah.
We do.
Okay,
I'll make a motion to approve the summer hours for the DPW, starting May 5th.
through when?
At
I know.
least through Labor Day weekend.
Yeah. we usually-
Last year, we were able to carry it, I think, the beginning of October, which is really helpful too.
Yeah,
But
I would-
sometimes just.
I would just-
seasons
That's May
play
25th?
different. Yeah, so,
You want to say Halloween?
Yeah, I would just say it, and then
Right,
if you
yeah,
don't
so-
need it.
so
and then
Labor
once
Day.
we get to Halloween, we're doing 9-hour days anyway,
With
at
leagues.
least Monday through Friday. So, yeah, if we wanna
Yeah, we were
do that and
Yeah.
then just play it by ear at that. point.
okay, so we'll just say they commence and then we'll sort it.
Sure.
Is that
So
what we are?
till September 1st, is that when we're
No,
doing?
we're not even giving a closing
No.
date yet, we're just realizing depending on the
Okay.
needs.
Yeah.
Okay, so
And
then,
then depending on the needs, ending
Yeah.
summer.
Yeah.
I'll
Here we go.
second.
Okay.
Okay, we have a second,
We have something in there.
yeah.
Okay.
Sort of.
Trustee Marshall,
Aye.
trustee Cove,
Aye.
trustee Wilkes.
Aye.
Trustee Limbeck,
Aye.
Mayor Plummer.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, what else do you
Thank
need?
you, guys. This is more on the aesthetic side of things, which I'm not very good at sometimes, which is best, but. With the Paddle and Pour event coming up, we have, the holiday lights that are still strong across the bridge handrails of North Main Street. They're stranded, they're 25 feet long, and then there's a splice, you know, a plug that connects, and there's a lot of failures that can happen with those. The town had reached out and asked if we could make sure it was lit for the event because it adds to the aesthetic, so.
Yeah, the town wants the lights to
Paddle and
remain
pour.
for paddle and pour.
Yeah.
Okay.
So. I'm looking at other options and one of them is a rope light. And these are 150-foot long strands. And, you know, the LEDs are all encased in a thick, like an insulator. And the plug-ins are all weatherproof, which is helpful too.
So you think they'd last longer?
I
You
think
know, yeah,
potentially,
that's an issue we have because they just get beaten up,
yeah.
you know,
But my biggest trip up is the aesthetics of a rope light versus, you know, strands. And how that will look, and I'm
I don't know, well,
I'm gonna
visually.
bring back you guys in the I want to.
where's the thought?
I think
These are the big
I think
conference questions.
I think the light quality probably is gonna be more so. So you know how you've got the LED blue light. and
These are
you've
gonna
got
be
the
like.
golden-
warm-
They're warm
The
lights.
warm
We do
gold, the
Yep,
warm
sure.
gold, you can get the warm gold in the strand.
I know it's a little picture, but you kind of get the gist.
Yeah, they're the
Yeah,
warm.
I think
Yeah,
that's,
I see.
yeah. But I mean, if we could do
It's
warm, obviously.
My only comment is on a bridge that is generally looks a little more historic, right? The rope might be a little more modern. And it's possibly a contrast that might look a little funny if we invest a bunch of money in new lights. That's all, again, me, similar to you, I'm just throwing out my 2 cents at it.
Mhm.
If the village wants that to be lit, we're gonna be investing more money into it regardless, so.
But to replace it because it's.
Yeah, we're
without-
gonna-
We're chasing failures right now.
Yeah.
And especially, I mean, it's getting more and more difficult with longer days, so when we come in, they're set on the photo wise along with the street lights that are right there. So when the street lights go off, the lights on the bridges go off, so,
Yeah, everything's,
yeah. Typically, they're off at this point, you know, when we coming in the morning, when we go to 6 o'clock in the morning, we'll be able to see the firefly. And they're, you know, they're not lit during working out, so.
so let's stay with strand lights, warm white, they
Okay.
look beautiful.
All right, so.
Everybody loves them.
Well, do you have any idea, like, in terms of the durability or lifetime of the lights versus, you know, failure rate?
So those ones right there are rated for
1,000 hours of lit time. So each LED, is supposed to last 100,000 hours. And I mean, at this point,
It's costing that.
That's 100,000 hours.
No, I don't think so. The rope light would be more efficient, there's no doubt.
on the average, we're looking at maybe like 12 hours a day.
Yeah.
12 hours time,
Okay,
potentially.
yeah, because I mean, it's all derived from,
so
Yeah,
22 years, 28 years.
Is it gonna last as long as the
They-
flush truck?
Do they have solar string lights?
They do, but
Yes.
that's got its own set of problems.
Mhm. Solar string lights.
So I know, we did talk about solar at one point.
Yeah,
Those are a little sketchy though too.
Mhm.
That's
they're
the problem.
definitely not
Consistent
nearly
light,
as
yeah,
bright.
Yeah,
And, they're all derived from the sun and then.
yeah.
battery that they have
Yeah.
to keep it going.
What are you thinking, Dorothea?
I'm just gonna throw out it, and to me, when there was a big difference when those lights went on the bridge,
Mhm.
it provides light and it's a little more secure for residents and people walking.
Oh, people love
Oh,
it.
yeah.
They
Yeah.
love it.
I mean, it's a great thing to have, I agree,
That's why we
like
cut them up.
Yeah, so I
Yeah,
personally, they should be up all year.
Yeah.
I agree.
So to me,
Especially
it's
in
more of
summer.
an additional security,
Mhm,
if you
I
wanna
would
look
agree
at
with
that way. So if you
It's
can
just
find
the
a
look.
way,
It's just a look.
yeah, it's the look.
It's rope or strand.
I guess I just, I'd like to pull up a picture, rope versus strand on a bridge.
The only other thing,
Yeah,
and I'm not
Really
picking
fun.
either one, I'm not saying, cause I told him I wouldn't give him any advice. When I look at the strands, it's easier for kids and other people to manipulate. I mean, at least
Oh,
the,
that's true.
Yeah,
It's
the individual
enclosed.
LEDs do pop,
That's what
they get-
I know,
Yeah.
this is more secure
It is.
essentially.
It doesn't look as nice, but yeah, it does
But
have
you know,
better
it's
safety
just
and.
lit up on the bridge, it's just pretty.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Dave,
I mean, do you really think it's gonna be, oh my God, it's a rope light, what the heck are you doing?
Oh, yeah, I think there are people.
Well, you know, that's like, you know, why did I even say that? Of course.
100%.
No, you'll be getting calls.
I'm just gonna refer them to the attorney's comment.
Yeah. We'll let you, yeah.
Yeah, I told you. So we could do it.
I would say let's just keep it consistent and we can continue to revisit it if we want to individually look into it. But for now, I just make what we have work personally.
And add in as needed, because I know you're gonna have to replace some.
All right.
There we go.
Yeah,
One and done.
okay.
One thing that, well, sort of a member item, but since we're talking about lights. We were talking about along Jefferson Road that there's not enough lighting on the sidewalks,
Yes,
yes. And I had mentioned to you, what if we could, because we know the poles have power.
Yeah,
What if we could tap into the base of the pole and have a downlight coming off, just a low voltage. Washing a sidewalk, so there's at least another level of visibility. And it could just be discreet, just a wash.
it's almost like the very soft, almost kind of pink light, coming in,
Yeah.
but it's so
But it'd be
dim.
another,
yeah.
that when you have cars.
They're
going-
intended for the roads, so
Yeah.
they're not intended to light the sidewalk up. It's just a byproduct if it does reach the sidewalk, especially if there are trees. and
which
stuff.
is why I'm saying, could we
Yeah.
look at something like that?
Anything's doable.
Okay.
I mean, nothing's
love
free,
that.
So I have to say, my quick search, with rope versus strand, the rope, it's not good.
That was strand.
Good, then that just confirms it, it
Yeah.
really is. It
Well,
looks
we found a
easy.
picture of-
It looks easy. It looks like my son's bedroom when he was 12.
It's good if it's, if you're not actually looking at the road, if it's like underneath the curb or,
Right,
That-
yeah, right,
but-
right,
yeah,
yeah.
being exposed like that doesn't have.
Yeah, it's a little normal looking.
Right.
Okay,
Okay, so,
that and the lava lamp.
yeah, if you guys are out and about it in the evenings and it's dark out and the streetlights come on, you guys are traveling across North Main Street Bridge and you see any outages, please just refer that back to me.
Yeah, I'll report any.
We're not always in here when it's from this point moving through the summer when it's dark.
Yeah, okay, all right, what else for us?
That's all I got.
What about the truck letter?
No, that's in here, that's,
Yeah.
it's, you gotta.
What are the ACT requirements?
Oh, yeah, you gotta go over the truck letter for Conway.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's
So-
here, I have it.
Okay, this is New York State's rule. That was put into effect by the DEC, that if. As years progress, the fleet of vehicles that weigh more than 8,500 pounds, I believe it is. the fleet has to continuously take on more and more, zero emission vehicles.
Like electric vehicles.
Electric, yeah, whatever that's gonna be, you
Right.
know, if hydrogen is the way to
Yeah,
go,
whatever.
it's just something that doesn't produce, any hydrocarbons, or whatever, so. What, if a vehicle's job is to have any sort of, snow maintenance responsibilities with it, then that allows that vehicle to be exempt from that ACT rule. So that's what this letter
Okay.
says, is that it is that these vehicles are purchased with the intent of using them for snow.
Which exempts us, so we can do the purchase.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hold that.
Yeah. Okay, so,
This letter is from you to the state department,
Right.
right?
yeah,
So you need to authorize,
the mayor's.
mayor to sign.
Make a
Sure.
motion to authorize the mayor to sign the Conway Beach Truck Group, letter.
Second.
Okay. It's tough at this end.
Yeah, it's tough. Put us together.
Okay, trustee Lindbeck,
Aye.
trustee Marshall,
Aye.
trustee Co,
Aye.
trustee Wiltz,
I
Mayor Plummer.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, anything else for us?
think that's it.
Thanks, Sal.
Final questions for
I'm
Zach.
still thinking of those lights.
Zach, any chance on, how that Mary,
That's on the list of lots of work to do this spring,
great, next question, sidewalk too, right?
sidewalk
The,
too.
the sidewalk, on North Main,
Yeah, yeah.
Where the cones are?
yeah, with cones
Yeah, I
up.
put the cones out, that's.
Yeah, and then across the street, there's cones on parking spaces.
Yeah, that was so we could get access to the leaves that were put,
Okay.
either on the curb or in those parking spots.
The faster we can get rid of cones and address those things, the better.
Work it out.
All right, I figured as much.
You got it, thanks.
Well, we did
thanks.
have a blizzard today.
I know.
Okay, Zach, thank you.
Thanks,
Oh,
Sal.
exciting. What was exciting today?
Yeah.
Okay. Next up, what's next? Okay, treasure.
Me again.
You want us to grab the treasury report? Remember,
I think we're good. Is there any member items for Jeff or anything that Jeff needs to be there if we got a member item? You are released to the universe. Thank you. Fine, sir.
Thank you.
Okay.
I did have one RG, question, the lighting for all the new replacements that
Mhm.
didn't we approved that last year? The new lighting, LED lighting and RG&E, did we approve that or is that still? in-
Yeah,
No,
I
we-
believe that was approved.
How's that been
Yeah.
going? Have you seen any action?
No,
I-
so they're responsible anytime they come out to do a street light repair that we call in.
Yeah.
If it's on one of those, anyway, they're supposed to swap those out to LEDs. That's really the only action that I've been seeing. I'm sorry, not LED, because the concrete hard plates that would be on South Main Street in Monroe.
Yeah.
Those, I think, are exempt.
I think we need to reach out to the representatives, see where they
Oh,
are in
yeah.
that project. We did authorize and sign it off and send it to them, so.
That's what I was thinking.
Was there
Yeah.
This
money-
was converting.
Yeah, we were using the NYSERDA money.
Right, but was there a transaction you made or?
No, they haven't billed us. We signed the contract, we sent it all in. We haven't heard from them.
Yeah, okay. That's what I brought forward. I haven't seen anything. I kind of.
No, I don't think anything's happened.
Yeah.
We'll
It's
reach out.
RG&E. That's why I said we should probably attach some sort of time frame to our G before doing that work.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Sal.
I'll be right back in my bag. Good night.
Oh, he's got to come back. Okay.
Oh.
Okay, thanks.
Okay,
You wanna go? You should I?
We'll
Should I
make
stay around for anything?
No, thank you very much for staying.
Right,
Yeah, have a good evening. Thank you.
Thank you guys very much.
Yeah,
Thanks, Zach.
okay, treasurer, you're up.
everybody sure? Okay, we have actually a small bill pay, nothing huge in the call outs. Some work that was done with tires, that's a little on the pricier side. Barrow is in there, that was part of the agreement to use Barrow for the front entrance to do the bid packet, that's not a complete bill.
Yeah.
On the front entrance, I had gotten results today, I don't think I got a chance to tell you. The asbestos test came back negative,
Oh,
so hallelujah.
Okay,
So as I said, I'm hoping to have that bid spec
okay.
for the
Yeah,
next meeting.
The project was sort of held up a little bit because they had to stop. It's sort of, you know, it's- Thanks again. Jeff. Yeah, so, no.
Yeah, remediation is, and with municipal public buildings, you have to always take and do asbestos testing
Yes.
before you do a project because it can change the whole scope of the project.
Oh, for sure.
Okay, is there
Okay.
any questions on the bills or anything? It's pretty standard, nothing too outrageous.
Okay, is there a motion, please?
Motion to approve as presented.
Second. That's it.
Good job.
We got you.
Done. You're on.
Stop it, stop it.
Wow. All right, trustee Lindbeck,
Aye.
trustee Wilkes, trustee Marshall, trustee Cove,
Aye.
Mayor Plummer. Motion passes.
Okay, we got through that. What else from the treasurer?
Well, we have the financials.
Okay, thank you.
These are the February financials I forgot to put in the last meeting pack. So is there any questions or concerns? Nothing too outrageous. Everything's moving forward. I don't even believe I needed a budget transfer on this one, which is surprising this time of year. So
Yeah, that's one.
some just to,
Mhm.
let me rephrase that. There are some that show negative, and those will be the ones typically that have the ARPA, and it's on purpose because it's coming in from the funds. They're technically not within the budget. So to do the budget amendment to get the negatives,
That's like a little separate.
our software is not that intuitive. No, it's not that intuitive. So I reflect it as negative because you don't want to put it into, I'll clear those negatives at the end of the year
Mhm.
is the goal. So unless there's any other
Is there a motion?
concerns with those two, I'll take that. Cool.
Motion to approve the financials as presented.
Oh.
Second.
Oh.
I was, I wanted to wait 5 seconds before.
Right, you're the second.
Okay.
Come on, take it off.
Okay.
Oh, boy. All right, trustee Cove,
Aye.
trustee Lindbeck,
Aye.
trustee Wilkes,
Aye.
trustee Marshall,
Aye.
Mayor Plummer. Motion passes. Real
Okay.
quick, since Zach brought up summer hours, the village hall has been conducting summer hours the last few years.
Yeah.
We go from the first Friday in June to the last Friday after Labor Day. So if we can have approval for that.
Remind me what they are.
Is it just Fridays?
Just Fridays, we leave at 1.
So.
So is it a full, do you shift those hours into other days?
Yes, everybody, the employees have a choice. They either can use personal vacation, whatever, to cover their missing hours or work later on those other days to compensate.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it starts June
The
2nd is the first Monday in May, or
First-
June, I'm sorry,
the first Friday in June.
first Friday in June, so it's Friday, June 6th.
Yep,
June 6th, till you said Labor Day.
after Labor Day, yep,
Which would be like June or September 5th.
that sounds right.
It's the last Friday.
So that's the motion.
Okay, that's to approve the village hall summer hours to go on from June 6th to September 5th to have the village hall open Fridays till 1 p.m.
Okay.
Okay, trustee Limbeck,
Aye.
trustee Wilkes,
Aye.
trustee Marshall,
Aye.
trustee Coe.
Aye.
Mayor Plummer.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay.
That's all I got.
That's it.
I could create more, but I
You have minutes on there.
I don't think I provided them.
I could say, it's there.
I was hoping, I think I had them in there in the, I hope I can get through them.
Well, that's always the case. Okay, we're cruising now. Any member items?
So I do have a member item. I'm very excited that I will be in Florida on the next meeting, which is September, not that I'm gonna be excited that I will be here, but I'll be excited I'll be in Florida. April's 22nd, so as I had stated before, I'd like the short-term rental discussion and any kind of vote to happen after that. Also, there's some discussion, David Wilkes would like to put some discussion into the meeting time. I wanted to put it on the agenda for the September, or the April 22nd meeting. I would like that also to be on the meeting that I'm here to be this one. Please, so that I can be involved in the discussion.
So unfortunately, I want to keep the April 22nd meeting time on the agenda. It is time sensitive for, gosh, I've had a whole cohort of young families, working residents who have reached out, who have said that the timing right now does not work. So I would like to discuss that as soon as possible so that they can participate in the local government.
So let me make a comment. I don't know why it would be time sensitive, number one. Number two, there's more opportunities than ever for residents to chime in and hear, both on Zoom. This is all recorded. they had access to us by email and phone and text in every way, more than ever in the history of our abilities to interact with our.
I'd like to chime in on that, because at one point we brought up the possibility of having, as needed, if there was an emergency, to have maybe one of our board members, Zoom in and be able to participate. And I know there really was a forceful discussion about making sure everybody's present and that we're all here. And it's important to have people in person and people who want to come in. And I think, I agree. I think it is time sensitive, because we essentially, with a very early meeting, I think we really are leaving out a bit of our population here in the village that has reached out, certainly to David at this point. And
So
I
assuming
think we
that
should
if we
discuss
make
it. I think we need to
If
bring
we
it back
make
to the
it
board.
later, that we're gonna have people on site? Is that your?
It's an opportunity for them.
So you think that if we have a meeting later, people are more likely to show up here in person?
We used to have people, how many people would come at meetings when they were 7 o'clock at night? We would get,
When was that?
7 o'clock was
It was
prior
7,
to
6:30.
It
COVID.
was before COVID and the world has changed, okay,
Well,
so
it
now
was a-
online stuff is way more, and people are gonna be online way more than they're gonna be in person.
this is a member item
Well, but
segment, but
I'll
you,
bring up
you
that.
have every right to put it on the
Yeah.
agenda. You have every
Also-
right to opine that you don't want it on the agenda.
Yeah.
And
Also-
we have had this discussion. To have any more depth of discussion when it has not been publicly noticed,
Yeah.
we shouldn't, because this is a member item.
So I would like to include that on the April 20th.
That, everybody has a chance to open.
And now let me just ask a question about that, so if it is on the agenda, there's no voting that happens that night, or can there be a vote that happens?
We never figure out when we vote or not. In other words, if the board
It's up to the
at
board.
that
Okay.
time
Decides whether
has,
to vote.
that is
Okay.
part of how we govern. That's how part of governance.
So at that time, they'll decide whether to vote or not,
Of course,
okay.
of course. Okay, so any other member items? Brenda, I know you do.
They're quick.
David Sam's.
So things that we have left that we need to come back to at some point, okay? We talked about the DPW and bringing in a consultant, trying to find a way to move that conversation forward. Personally, we could probably just start with a workshop, but we do need to be thinking over time about what are we doing with the DPW? And where are we going with that? And what options are in front of us? I know that there's been conversations on the campaign, I've heard from various people. There's opportunities, for engagement with the town, there's opportunities to redo the current facility, all these different things are out there. We should have a conversation. So, I don't necessarily care how fast, I don't care if it's next meeting, the meeting after, but I think when we start to see a lighter agenda, if we could all remember, we should probably schedule a workshop. Maybe it's a workshop and it's just distinct to itself.
Oh, I definitely think it should be,
Well,
because that's a huge.
yeah, I agree.
component.
How about we schedule it? Is everybody okay putting something on the calendar, maybe in mid?
Why don't we have Alexandria pull the board
Yeah.
for dates?
Sure.
Okay.
Yep.
And that's typically how we handle it, you guys, with either Dorothea or Alexandria will reach out, pull the board for some dates, and then we set it up. Okay,
If I can suggest, if we look at the summer, because that's when you go to one meeting a month, and that
Yeah.
loosens that calendar a little bit.
We
Yeah,
could also
please.
do it in the middle of the day or lunch. I mean, I don't know what everybody's schedule is like. It's a little challenging for me, but I can maybe squeeze out for an hour and just start the conversation.
Yep. No,
Maybe-
just
Lunch is typically better Friday.
Yeah, so.
to throw that out there.
Right, but I think, yeah, let's pull the board, go with that. And I also think maybe then, but it could be before, we decide if we want to invite people in to talk about opportunities, ideas, engagements, past, former, DPW chairs, the town, all these different things, property owners. The Arboretum, maybe a member of the Arboretum, just thinking about what do we do there. We don't have to do that, but anyway, so that's that.
A question on that, would it make sense to talk to Zach first before we have a workshop to determine that we need, X amount of square footage, we've got so many vehicles, what can be left out, what can be left in? And I wouldn't mind taking that on, if we schedule a date, getting some information ahead of time. So
That'd be
we've
great.
got something to work from.
And also Fran Overmeyer has done some work on this.
Mhm.
He is an engineer.
I know, he's an
You know,
architect, yeah.
he-
Enfield.
That's right.
Yeah.
So there's some groundwork that's been done, so we should pull that material and
I
make
can
sure.
call for him.
Yeah, Yeah, and Scott Harder has some stuff too.
Okay, I think that'd be great.
Yep.
More information is better than none.
And so the action is gonna be to poll for dates.
Pull for dates and then.
Yep.
That's great. The DOT letter, we're gonna craft a letter to the Department of Transportation about NISDOT, about things that we would like to see the next time they come around and consider things that we could do now. Is that a workshop? Is that an agenda item? Personally, I think it's probably 15 to 25 minutes in a meeting where we all hammer out things that we agree in the majority, and then somebody moves amongst us to try to craft a letter.
So. Is this effectively based off of public input or just our own?
Well, it's a series of public input over, many years.
Okay.
We're always working
Gotcha,
with the NISDOT, right?
Yeah.
It's a constant sort of, give and take.
Yeah.
And the things that they put forward, we try to potentially, get something different than what we end up with.
Yeah.
And we just want to continue to reiterate on a regular basis.
And I think part of that should be, we should probably, and would be time to just take a look again at our active transportation plan.
Yeah.
That we did jointly with the town and say, where are we with this? What has been implemented, what are those priorities again? Because, the plan was done quite a while ago, and I think it's an opportunity for us to just maybe reprioritize if we need to, that kind of thing. So, I think, the letter to NISDOT's great, but I think also, they look at that active transportation plan, that is part and parcel of helping them make some decisions, and so I think it's an opportunity really for us to take a look at that.
I think that's a great idea. I mean, just back it up instead of going right to the letter.
Yeah,
things.
yeah.
Let's go to the active transportation and then.
Because if the letter says,
Yeah.
here's the revisions that we've done on our ATP, because sometimes, and this happened the last time. This was years ago, it was right before I was on the committee to look at it with the town. NISDOT was said, your transportation plan is so old, how do we even know it's valid? In other words, keeping current with things like that makes a difference
Yeah.
when you're making the case, so.
Yeah, it was
put
done
that out there.
pre-COVID.
Oh, yeah, it's definitely done pre-COVID, I think it was like 8 years ago, maybe,
Mm,
7.
2019.
I remember it. I can't give you a year.
Yeah,
COVID has messed up my year time.
okay,
Whether or not we update it or just lean on it. To say, where are we, what do we need, what are we doing well, there's a lot of things that have been done well, right? And
Oh,
that are
yeah.
coming down the pipe, so we just need to start checking the boxes and see what we need to do. Okay.
How would, okay, just from the clerk's perspective, how would you like this treated? Do you want a workshop on this or you want on an agenda? And which agenda?
A light agenda? Light agenda day?
yeah, another light agenda day. I actually think we should probably, let me just think through this. Why don't we let's pull things internally, okay, with staff and take a look at the plan. Maybe bring it back on, maybe, depending on the next agenda, fairly quickly to the board as an agenda item, and then we make the decision. We need a workshop, we really need a whole, not a
Okay.
rewrite, but a real update. And let's reach out back to the community.
Potentially
Maybe we
next
need an
meeting, if
officer rep.
not the following.
Yeah, I don't know that we go straight to
Is
workshop.
the
as much
plan
as-
on the website?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we can send you just a digital if you want, yeah,
Okay.
yeah, why don't we do that as an action item, let's send the digital of the ATP to the board here. Just so you kind of can take a look,
You mean the-
it's great reading,
The PDF.
Yeah.
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 It's on.
yeah, but just,
Sounds-
send it out, so
Yep.
everybody's- it's the same
We'll send
material,
it.
okay, any other,
I'm still going, Sean.
no, it's.
No, hey, no, these are all good things, look, actions
They're
are
fabulous.
Thank you. The Shane Place grant that we have outstanding.
Mhm.
It is a aspirational item, or did it get into grant projects? I think it went into grant projects.
I think it went into grant projects because it is this active grant that we have.
Sure. At
Real money.
some point, we probably should.
Oh, yeah. Circle
So,
back.
okay, so I'm gonna do that alone for now. That's all I got for today.
Yeah. You know what, I'm gonna reach out, can you put it down as an action item from me? To reach out to Cornhill Navigation, because they received a grant. To do improvements in their docking area for accessibility. And remember, they were part of our meeting, and I think, you know, at least that's a starting point, like, where are they? This, I know that this is a huge season for them because of the canal bicentennial.
Yeah.
But I know they need to move forward on that, so if we get a little more information on that, I'll follow up.
Okay.
I'll make sure that, you know, and I can bring that, I can put it back on the agenda, and just so, this is kind of where they are. They're looking to work, they want to work with us on whatever we want to do, so.
Yeah, if we have an opportunity to integrate accessibility in a
Mhm.
way that is, you know, fitting and works and all that,
Right.
then. And they lose the grant because we didn't move on time, that'd be kind of sad.
Yeah, no, we, you know, that's
I'll
all
be back.
part of it, for sure. Okay,
They were soon.
what other items?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, anybody else, any other? All right, I make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
Okay, roll call.
Trustee Limbeck,
Aye.
trustee Co, trustee Wilkes.
Aye.
Trustee Marshall.
Aye.
Mayor Plummer. Motion passes.
Okay, thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
For your first meeting.
Not to, you know, someone needs-
Ah.
when you